And we're live. Chris Hardy, thank you for joining today.
My pleasure, and thank you for having me.
So we have a lot of topics to go over. We have a list of topics, both ones that came up in chat, ones that were left in the comments and so on, like online. Before we do that, the last time we were speaking, you said it was the beginning of the year. I believe it was January, and we were talking New Year's resolutions. Yours revolved around your health. I was just curious for an update how that's going.
Yeah, mine didn't revolve so much around my health. If you remember, it was much more about me trying to get back to people really quickly and not leaving people hanging. I think maybe because we also had my good friend Manny from EPD on, right? And I think maybe his was health related.
I was thinking of the one with Chris West, and I just thought it was something.
Oh, maybe it's Chris West. Chris West has actually been doing a really good job. He's been training a lot. He's been eating a lot healthier. He's been going to intermittent fasting. So I know that he's seeing some results he's quite happy with. Maybe Manny wasn't the person, but that's who I was on that call with. For me, it was much more about trying my best to get back to people faster than I had been previously, and not leaving people hanging. And I think I've definitely done a better job than that in that respect. But man, it's really hard to control because like today as an example, I'm on multiple planes. It seems like every single time I'm traveling anywhere right now, there's lots of delays. And so you have these planned schedules that just don't work out. And then we have so many different ways they're communicating, right? We're communicating with this thing called Teams. Well, I have to turn that notifications off because I'm in like 4 or 5 chat rooms in Teams. That thing goes off all day, every day if I leave the notifications on. And people are like, hey, like, and I'll go and I'll realize, oh my God, you messaged me yesterday and I didn't get back to you. So anyways, with the customers, which I guess is where I'm really getting at, I think I've been doing a better job. And I don't think I was ever really bad at it. I think most people were really quite pleased with the way I responded and how quickly I responded, but I wanted to make that a priority.
What if does anything come to mind that like you implemented that kind of helped streamline that difference from December to now, maybe, or November to now?
Yeah, some of the notifications that I had to turn off in order to make that happen. I know it sounds crazy, but you're sitting there and you're watching some of these notifications going off, and you have a plan. Oh, when I hang up with Eric, I'm going to get on the phone. I'm going to call Rob Gullery from Never Ride Stock. Right? That's a plan that I have tonight. Well, what if instead I'm like looking at my phone and there's notifications going off, and I'm like, ooh, that's kind of pressing. Maybe I should get to that first, and then I'll forget to call Rob back later on. So as crazy as it sounds, turning off some of the notifications has helped. And of course, as you know, while I've left my profiles live on social media platforms, I'm not really on them at all. I rarely have ever in. I do get the notifications if somebody tags me on Facebook, for instance, and then I can reach out to them privately. Like Juan Maldonado did one the other day, which was super cool. And I messaged him privately saying, "Hey, thanks so much for the shout out," and stuff like that. But again, the social media thing, most businesses need to rely on that, and I totally would recommend that. But on a personal level, if you can get away from social media, like Mike Burke was talking about in his last article in Window Film Revolution, I'm in complete agreement with it.
Yeah, or rather, you only have so much attention in the day, and it's something you don't realize until you're using all of it. Until you're at like 150%. That's when you realize you're like, certain things do grab your attention. They wear out your mind just like a little bit, and you can do without it, and you have to start stripping those away. So,
yep. Yeah, helped a lot.
Real good. So why don't we just jump into some of these topics then?
A lot of contentious subjects. I saw the post tag and I was like, oh wow, we're going after it tonight. But look, I mean, I'm good with it. Look, we said that we were going to be an open book today, and we are going to be an open book. One of the things that I've always been proud about with XPEL is that they are not interested in trying to hide things. Am I saying that I can always relay every single piece of information I have? No, of course not. Especially as I've moved upwards in management, there has been times where I've had to keep my mouth shut about some things that are going on in the background. And that's understood. That's true of any company at any point in time. But for the most part, they really let me do my own thing. They actually, the CEO himself and the senior vice president, Matt Moreau and Ryan Pape, they both pay attention to these podcasts and listen to them afterwards. And never once have they said to me, hey, you said something on a podcast that you shouldn't, even though there's been a couple times where I was like, ooh, maybe that one I shouldn't have let loose. But yeah, let's just go at it and go for it. And I'll do my best to try and make people understand where we're coming from.
Well, every single time we've talked live, you've always made it clear that nothing is off limits. Everything you want to be transparent with. I have a tremendous amount of respect for you for that, and I think everybody does who sees these. I think this can be so valuable because when some of these contentious topics come up, those posts typically go into the 100, 200 comment range, and you see a lot of different people putting in their 2 cents. And whether we're speaking specifically about XPEL related or just sometimes topics in general that blow up like that, if you're kind of in the know, you start to see certain comments where you're like, that has nothing, there's nothing to that. That's completely wrong. And what I'm saying is then you see people that are right and so on. But when you have 200 comments, what do you know is right or wrong? So this is an opportunity where people can ask follow-up questions, speak directly to the source, not hear it from somebody who doesn't even have experience on that subject. So I thought it was important to get as many people watching as possible because that's going to lead to those follow-up questions and so on. So what I want to ask everybody watching now is, as we get started, if you can share this into any groups you're in or on your personal page, that's going to help more people get in here live, because what happens is they catch this tomorrow or the day after and they kind of miss that opportunity necessarily to engage in the conversation. So,
yep. Yeah, cool. I mean, as we said, right, I'm going to do my very best to answer everything candidly. Some of the answers you may not like, but I'm not going to sugarcoat them. I've never been about that. I've always been about trying to be as upfront and forward as possible, and to make people at least understand, that yes, there's always 2 sides to everything, and hopefully people can comprehend and understand where we're coming from. I watch a lot of some of so because I'm not on social media, what will happen is people will suddenly make me aware of a bunch of chatter that's happening, and not only about our brand, but obviously a lot of times about other brands. And then I sit there and I read it, and some of the stuff I read, I'm just like, man, this is so fake news. It's insane. It's really upsetting. You want to almost tackle the person to be like, yo, where are you coming from this? As a matter of fact, just yesterday, you were begging me for an account saying that XPEL is the greatest thing ever, and that if you could please let me into XPEL, that's all that you're looking for. And then because we had to decline you for various reasons, now you're smashing us online. Or, I know that there's brand managers that are telling some of their accounts to do that as an effective way of communicating, what have you. I mean, I don't know, again, too much of your time and attention can be swallowed up by trying to understand what's real and what's not. And hopefully today we can set the standard straight.
Okay. Shall I lead with the list?
Whatever's good for you, my friend.
Let's do it. First one on the list, we have XPEL working directly with vehicle manufacturers.
Sure. This came up recently. I did see some people had sent me a bunch of comments regarding a possible partnership with an EV manufacturer. And what's funny is that they'll sit there and again, you can tell who's sitting there making a lot of the negative comments are people that are not XPEL, number one. And there are people that I can actually go in and I can check NetSuite and I can see all the recorded conversations and see the emails and see that they've been asking for XPEL accounts. And unfortunately, we've had to decline them. And it's not usually because of them personally. As a matter of fact, 99% of the reasons for decline is either one of 2 reasons. It's that they're too close to somebody else, or they're not a brick and mortar operation, which is what we're currently looking for, unless they're doing strictly wholesale work, right? But where I guess it gets interesting is that they're sitting there saying, well, by working with the manufacturers, you're taking the work away from us. And I sit there and I go, okay, that seems really small-minded. I remember having this conversation with Josh Popenick, actually from Blackout Tinting, who him and I have had some really interesting history. In the beginning, the guy hated my guts because I was coming to him saying, I really would like you to be married and drop your other brands and, and come on board with us exclusively, what have you. And now we've become unbelievably good friends. And of course, his business has skyrocketed. But I was having this conversation with him and I was wondering, in a person like him, where he's a young, aggressive, go-getter, business operator, how would he feel? What was his response? And he was like, no, man, that's actually really beneficial because I know that if you don't take it, if XPEL doesn't take it, then another brand's going to, such as 3M or Lumar or Suntech, of course, because manufacturers are only going to reach out to one of the 4 of us. And Suntech and Lumar, I realize they're both Eastman, but that's a reality, right? They're going to look at one of those, let's call it 3 then. Let's call it Eastman, 3M, and XPEL. They're only going to reach out to those 3 companies to say, hey, we're looking to do an in-house program with you guys. We're contacting all of you. one of you is going to win the opportunity. The other two are not.
Mhm.
So if people sit there and think that somehow if I allow, let's say 3M to win that contract, and now that manufacturer is pumping 3M as the brand of choice with all their consumer base, and that's going to somehow help my XPEL customers, then I'm sorry, but that's just the most small-minded thing I've ever heard in my life. I apologize for sounding a little aggressive on that language, but that's just how I feel. And as I said, I'm not going to sugarcoat things on this conversation.
So does that feedback, sorry to interrupt, but does that feedback typically actually come from any XPEL dealers, or is it online chatter from people who are trying to make XPEL to be some big bad like company, but they're not an XPEL dealer? Because there's like such a different thing.
Well, and so I think that it starts with some online chatter. And then of course it does engage XPEL customers. That's a reality. I've had XPEL customers reach out to me and say, "Hey, can you walk me through this so I can understand it properly?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." And we have a constructive conversation. By the end of it, I'm like, "Tell me which is the worst of the two evils. Do I sit there and let it go and not bid on it and let another brand get their awareness out there as the brand of choice for that manufacturer? Or do I take it on and understand that from the manufacturing level, we've seen numbers when they do the manufacturing offers for paint protection film, especially at a quote unquote factory level, the take rate is way less than 5%, way less. Even the best operations that we have going are under 5% take rate. So you're like 95% of those customers are still being told from day one, hey, you should get XPEL done to your vehicle prior to delivery. It doesn't get checked marked off as a factory option, call it. It shows up the dealer. Well, what do you think the dealer is doing? The dealer is saying, hey, you should get XPEL done to your car, and we're working with third-party vendors to come in and do it. Or some of the dealerships, of course, are doing it themselves in-house. And again, maybe that take rate is not that dramatic at that point because that customer has an experience with a shop that they like dealing with. And now they've heard from two different sources, at least XPEL is the brand they should go with. If you don't think that that's actually benefiting your business rather than hurting it, then I honestly can't help your mentality at that point. Because then I'm sorry, but it's just too closed.
They're either going to be recommending XPEL or something else. The recommendation's there. That's never going to change.
Never.
Yeah.
And manufacturers are recognizing more and more and more so that this is something that maybe they should be offering from the get-go, right? There was highline manufacturers that were doing, look, we weren't the first in the OEM spectrum. Not by a long shot. There was another company, which we know the name very well, we all do, that was doing it long before anybody else was. You don't see everybody else blowing them up over this. And yet they're part of the reason why paint protection film is even popular to this day, because they did get in with the OEMs from the beginning and say, hey, we should start putting this in front of a little, in front of little pieces in front of the rear tires so you're not getting all those chips on that Porsche 911. Well, that was brilliant because it actually started the conversation piece about what is that? Oh, well, can I do that anywhere else? Like that's that we owe a debt of gratitude to them for that. So again, if you can't get your mind wrapped around that, then I apologize, but at the end of this, then I don't understand how I can get you there.
I mean, here's the thing too, is like, if somebody's directly losing business because of this, and they come to you and they're not happy with the resolution, they have a valid reason to be upset and whatever, cool. But if you're operating your business, dealing with retail, if the thought, and you tell me differently because I'm guessing, but I feel like XPEL's not looking, okay, XPEL selling, a multi-billion-dollar company selling globally. They're probably not going like, all right, here's how we can grow. We can undercut our dealers and get it on the film earlier on, and that'll screw over our dealers. This is going to be our master plan. We don't need dealers. You wouldn't build a national dealer network to then get rid of them all and just sell it yourself, because in my opinion, because do you want to sell or do you want to be a supplier? And I feels like you want to be a supplier, and support your dealers, not be a dealer,
And again, like it's a difficult conversation because the reality is if we could legitimately convince every manufacturer on the planet and every dealer on the planet that to deal with real, true, professional, independent shops is the only way to do this properly, then that would be great. That would be the end of the conversation. But it's not that way. You've got bean counters at the manufacturing level. You've got bean counters at the dealership level that are sitting there saying, hey, we're missing out on an opportunity to do this ourselves. We think that this is a profit center, and we are going to do it. So now, does XPEL want to be involved or not? what we do is we do go to those manufacturers and we say to them, look, because of our extensive dealer network and because of the quality of our extensive dealer network, because we vet so many of our customers, right? Look, over 90% of all last year's account inquiries got declined. More than 9 out of every 10 potential customer for 2021 was told, no, thank you, by XPEL. We don't want your money. Not to, again, sound rude, but there was various reasons for each one of those declines. But that but we still went to now we can go to the manufacturer. We can see, look at the reviews, look at the quality of the shops, look at the quality of the owner operator. And am I saying that there isn't great owner operators representing some of those other brands? No, of course there is. Of course there is. But I think that if you were to look at XPEL as a whole, especially in the paint protection film world, you would see a fairly consistent shop quality, if you will, and install quality. Again, never going to have a complete balance of 100%, but I think it's fair that we can convince the manufacturers that this is in fact something that will help them, down the road with maintaining all those relationships with all those potential customers, and knowing that the take rate is so low, but that by them advertising that brand and then by the dealership advertising the brand, then that's it where it's going to land. It's going to end up more than likely now in an XPEL shop.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, we have price lists for dealerships, doing dealership work, and stealing accounts. That kind of.
Yeah, another tough subject, right? I mean, this is another contentious one. Again, saw some post that was forwarded to me from online, and it was kind of, I don't know, feel a little underhanded. What had happened was we, as you know, had merged with an account called Permaplate. Permaplate was not a manufacturer, right? Permaplate was strictly a independent operation that focused on dealership opportunity, with preload was their real driving force. I don't know if they did 100% preload, but that was really what they tried to do, is always do preload. The preload market is extremely low price points. I mean, extremely low. I have seen for myself preloads on full cars in some markets for tint at $60 a car installed with the film included. And you're going, wow, like, I don't even know where there's margin left on that. But point is that we had done this merger, and at times Permaplate was certainly national account, and they had been in markets where some of the price points were really aggressive, and they had gone to dealer groups where they were more than a single store operation, and they had to produce some aggressive pricing to try and win the business over. And look, none of us can fault something like that going on. I don't know that you should lead on price, but perhaps in that area, maybe that's more important than it is in some others. Regardless, here was this photocopy of the gentleman's business card on top of a 3-year-old price list. Mm-hmm. That he was saying, hey, look at how I've had this account for whatever number of years, and now I've lost this account to XPEL. Well, number one, that guy was not an XPEL account. Let's be very clear. And I think a number of people on that post thought that he was, and look, here's proof that XPEL's coming in to steal his business. Not true at all. I actually spoke to the dealer principal myself because I wanted to I wanted to hear about what had transpired. The dealer principal, sorry, maybe the general manager. My apologies. Let me change my language here. It was the general manager of the dealership that I was speaking to. I'd asked for the dealer principal and ended up getting the general manager. And the general manager was like, look, like 5 of our stores are looked after by XPEL now. This one was a standalone operation. It was a distance from the other 5. And we had repetitively asked for you guys to come in and service us. And finally, we told you guys that it's either you guys or we're going to bring in somebody else because we didn't want to deal with an independent anymore. The independent, from what I understand from my own XPEL people, they actually really like the guy. He's supposedly a really good guy. He supposedly does really good quality film. I don't know where the disruption was with regards to the dealership wanting to go elsewhere. Maybe it was price point. Again, don't know the answer. Just know that it was, you guys are coming in and doing it or you're not. And so, of course, we went ahead and said, well, yeah, I mean, if that's the forced narrative, then yes, we're going to take it. Now, what XPEL has tried to do and been spending a lot of effort, I mean a lot, between Hugh Cassiano, Eric Cummins, and Zach Burke, these 3 have been literally a quarter of their work week focused on bringing up dealership pricing. right? And recognizing that, you know, the dealerships are making full pop on cars right now. They're not discounting them anymore. They're not giving away, you know, crazy interest rates and, you know, subvented terms and stuff like that and all these incentives anymore. And so, yes, they're delivering less vehicles, but that by having less vehicles means that you do have to charge more per vehicle in order to make it sustainable, right? When you're doing a preload of 100 cars a month and now it's 50 or 60 cars a month, well, that means that your employee who you have there doing the installations is not doing as many cars. And just so you know, it's very standardized in the industry that the employee that's doing the installation is making a dollar per car, a certain amount per car, per install. Okay.
Right.
Well, of course, XPEL is very aggressive in the way that it looks after its employees and always has been. This has been a very big mandate from Ryan Pape from day one. So we'll do stay pay. And I don't know if anybody else is doing that. I haven't heard of anybody else doing that. As a matter of fact, I just had a conversation earlier today with somebody down in Atlanta. We was talking about this and how one of their main competitors does not do stay pay. And I'm like, look, we're doing stay pay. Fact is that if we have an installer who, you know, let's say through the merger has come on board and they were, you know, typically making 100 cars a month, and now they're only making 50, well, that's their paycheck's cut in half. So in order to make sure that we can keep them and keep them happy and give them all the same benefits that we give all the other XPEL employees, we're gonna top up their pay so that they have an opportunity to either make this or that, but that no matter what, they can't make less than a certain amount. And that's why we've managed to keep all of our staff, even with the lower car count that's going on. But again, we get back to the same scenario, right? Which is that the dealerships are thinking that they need to bring this work in-house. You have more and more of the dealerships that are belonging to these larger groups. The larger groups are 100% focused on bottom line profit. They've got amazing accountants, if you will. They're analyzing line item by line item by line item and looking at, hey, instead of paying for a third party, could we do this elsewhere or in-house? And it's funny because you do see some very positive remarks where, let's be candid, the installers are not typically what you would find in a shop, right? These guys are trained on one or two manufacturers. They're installing the film real quick. They're installing the film and typically a drive-through, which has got, you know, doors open and contamination going on. And these tint jobs are not what you would call a boutique job. And even with us, you know, to say otherwise is just not fair or accurate. One of the shop had made a comment, man, I hope that they keep doing this because I love getting paid to rip off the film that the customer's not happy with and redoing, right? And look, so I think that that's what it gets down to. You have a lot of people that are going to have tint, especially on their car, where they didn't care about whether or not they had tint in the first place. It's just there now, and so they paid for it. No different than, you know, nitrous in their tires and, you know, the road rash warranty that came with as well. And that it's just there as part of the package. They don't care what the quality of the tint looks like. And then you have these other customers that are very, you know, serious about the tint quality and always have been. And that's why they've always got their cars tinted by these boutique operations and or great independent operators, I guess. And so they end up wanting quality and they end up coming in and paying for it. So, but again, I would much rather that dealership be posting XPEL as the brand than posting another company as the brand, because again, you know, when you recognize that XPEL has done a better job than the vast majority of competition, if not all the competition, in its marketing strategy, this could negate that, right? The more that a Lumar got out there or a Suntech or even a 3M, which of course, you know, it's a household name, the more that a customer is going to recognize, well, hold on a second, from an independent perspective, I can go and look for a manufacturer, an independent that represents that manufacturer as well. So again, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't, and I believe that the damned if you do is still the better option of the two.
Yeah, I agree. New shipping program, new free shipping program. So shipping comes up sometimes.
We had a lot of this was a contentious subject for sure, and again, it was funny because I had somebody who sent me posts about it. So look, I was just reading the Wall Street article on the flight over here, specifically talking about shipping, and it was talking about how shipping is still 4 times higher right now than it was in June of 2020. What's cool is that it's actually come down a little bit very recently. very recently, the shipping costs have actually dropped a little bit. They've said that they've dropped as much as 25%, but that 25% is respective. That at the end of the day, right now at this moment, it's still 4 times higher than it was in June of 2020. Well, we had made a lot of legacy deals, right? And a lot of other manufacturers have done the same. What a lot of those other manufacturers have done is they've done some very dramatic price increases on their products to their customers, and I don't fault them at all for this. And so maybe by doing that, they've been able to maintain that, hey, if you order $1,000 worth of product, you would provide you with free shipping. But XPEL has only done one price increase on both paint protection film and window tint in the last 5 years. I do think that we're going to have to look at that by the end of this year and see if that's going to stay that way. And I think that that's just fair. When anybody in this industry understands that everything is basically petrochemical based, and that look at the price of gas, I mean, it doesn't take rocket science to figure out that the cost of everything is dramatically increasing. And this industry in particular is going to have to be affected by that. But getting back to the shipping, we analyzed it and we recognized that in just one of the markets that we were in, there was $837,000 in money that we had spent out of our pocket that had not been recovered in a rolling 12 months in shipping costs. And that was just one market. Wow. And we went, wow, like that is too high. And we went and looked at what it was pre-COVID. And it was less than a quarter of that. So we're like, okay, guys, like we've got to get a handle on this. And what we need to do is we need to make something uniform and fair to everybody and stop with some of these legacy deals, because we got rid of the legacy deals when it came to film prices, right? We when we moved over to NASDAQ, we agreed with NASDAQ to come up with official tiered pricing that any account in the United States or Canada or Mexico could adhere to. And again, there are different thresholds in both those other countries. But we came out with an official program. We said, this is what anybody, and the cool part is that I actually just had a conversation with an account earlier this morning up in Chicago. And they were like, hey, like, do I need to ask for discounts? I'm like, you don't need to, because we will let you know when you qualify for it. At the end of every year, we send out an email from the sales rep to the account, letting them know, hey, look, like this is where you're at. This is where you were at last year. Thank you so much for the increase in business. And by the way, you now qualify for a lower tiered price, and we are going to give it to you automatically. This is a legal standing that you have to do in order to maintain the fair business practice. But where it was unfair was that we had some legacy accounts were getting things like free shipping on orders over $1,000. And so in the United States, we agreed to a new program. And the new program was that we would palletize large shipments. Those pallets will only be coming from San Antonio. So for all of those that are on this call right now that aren't aware of that yet, that is what's going to happen any moment, because in our other shipping warehouses, such as Fullerton and Charlotte, which are now up and running, they're not that massive facility that we have in San Antonio, right? Just the one building alone in San Antonio is 120,000 square feet. Plus, we still have the other one, which was beside it, which is another 70. So there's 200,000 square feet or so in San Antonio. Well, I don't know what the Fullerton one is because I haven't been there yet, but I heard it's like 15,000, and the Charlotte one's around 15,000. So what I'm saying with that is that for us to palletize products out of there, that does not allow us to then make sure that we have enough product on hand at any given time for those supplemental orders or individual orders. So we're not going to ship out of those pallets anymore. We have done a few of them. We've decided, okay, that's not going to happen. What is going to happen is we'll send them out of San Antonio. And so if in the US you're ordering $10,000 or more in window film, it'll be put on a pallet and it will get shipped to you, and you will not pay for the shipping. And you should anticipate between 5 to 7 business days between the day that you order it to the day that it shows up in your door. It will be with what we call a guaranteed ship date through one of our third-party vendors, which means that it's not an ambiguous date of when it's showing up. It's a drop-dead date, because if they don't hit that date, they owe us back the money for the shipping, or maybe 50%, and then owe it back. I don't remember. It's something dramatic. Where if they want to do paint protection film, well, the problem with paint protection film is that 10 grand worth of paint protection film in a pallet doesn't work, right? If you're talking 48 inches of film, you're only talking 5 rolls of film. That's not going on a pallet. That doesn't make any sense. So that pallet on average is going to run us around $750 to ship it to anywhere in the continental US. So we're not going to, allow you to put, a $10,000 order of paint protection film in a pallet. It just isn't cost effective. So we decided the 20 grand is the threshold. Now, what we did though is with that 20 grand threshold, that can be a combo pack. So meaning that you can have, let's say, 7 grand in tint, 13 grand in paint protection film. You want to put another $1,000 or 2 grand worth of coating on top of that, no problem. Feel free, put it all together. What we're going to exclude from it is marketing materials for a good reason and tools. The two good reasons is because marketing materials quite often we're producing ourselves now at our San Antonio facility. What we don't want to do is hold up that palette while we're trying to print off banners for you and stuff like that, especially because we're planning on getting to some customized options for those very shortly. Here I am letting the cat out of the bag on something I'm probably not supposed to, but that's coming. And so that might take 2 or 3 days. Well, we don't want your palette to hold up on that. So I can tell you that if you try and put that on the pallet order, that could create a problem. So we're just going to be telling people, hey, it's for the consumable products specifically. They're coming out of San Antonio. There's palletized. So it's 10 and 20 grand in the US. In Canada, we have 2 massive warehouses, one in Calgary and one in Montreal. So the benefit is that we have different suppliers up there. We have Pure Leader up there, which you don't have in the US. Plus we have FedEx. And in Canada, the rule previous was that anybody over $1,000 was getting free shipping. This was a carte blanche rule. Again, we looked at, okay, well, how do we change that narrative without really, effectively hurting a lot of accounts? So we just simply raised it to 5 grand in Canada. But again, for very effective reasons, very different than the United States, where we only have one massive facility. Where in Canada, we actually have 2. And we have supplemental facilities in Canada, by the way, because we do have a supplemental facility in Mississauga as well. So with all that in mind, that's why we changed that one to 5 grand. And in Mexico, I'm still working through that.
So obviously continental US, we had a question regarding Hawaii. How's that look? Obviously not included.
Yeah, Hawaii is not. Yeah, Hawaii is 100% not included in that. But that is an awesome question. I'm not sure what we do currently for Hawaii, to be honest with you. I will connect with Jay Harville and ask him, hey, what is the current situation? We have a lot of great partners in Hawaii, and I obviously don't want to let them feel like they're not being looked after. They're really important to us. But however, I was in Hawaii with Brett Miller and Tiffany and David Glendenning and Julia just a couple years ago, and we were seeing, I don't know how you afford to live in Hawaii, to be honest with you. Like, it's so crazy expensive. And I'm sure a lot of it is to do with all these, shipping everything over there. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that they're unfortunately affected in a more negative way than others are. But I will get the answer, and we will make sure that the Hawaiian clients are aware of what that answer is. And I appreciate the question. I wish I knew the answer off the top of my head, but I don't.
So, if anybody's thinking, $10,000 is a lot of money, you should, the amount of shipping costs, basically, free shipping is something I think everybody should take advantage of. If you're automotive, you're buying the same films all the time, like you have to buy that threshold. If you haven't been, or it seems like a lot of money, you have to come into the realization, I feel like, that, everybody's obviously an economist now, because we have a potential recession. So that's obviously on the forefront of everybody's mind. But, trying to predict the future doesn't work so well. Trying to prepare for the future, I think, is a better option. And being able to stock your shop with film so that you save the shipping costs that are going to add up. That's money in your pocket. Number 2, you avoid shipping issues, supply issues. At least what you got to do through bad times is survive bad times. It's just not go out of business in bad times. Make it to the other side. And I just feel like why waste money on shipping? That's money that can help you get to the other side or help you grow.
Yeah, look, a lot of like high level investors and stuff like that right now, they are obviously concerned with where the economy is going. And so what they're doing is they're currently cashing out, and literally putting into cash reserves or something that's a lot more stable. And there's nothing more stable than your own inventory. Look, I have accounts that only buy 50 grand a year. And they're like, wow, $10,000. And I'm like, man, that's 2.5 months at best worth of inventory. What are you talking about? Like, is that really that big a deal? Wow, Chris, you're right. Like 2.5 months worth of inventory. That's all that is, versus you ordering it, as you're running out of it. And look, is it fair to say that almost every shop owner at one point in time or another has not been the best inventory manager? Yeah, I'm sure of that. but this is a very nice solution. And the reality is that you could quite easily catch an account where that's not a situation for them. In other words, where a customer is coming to you because that other person did have it in stock and you currently do, and you have it on hand right now. I mean, you should always be looking at if there's a potential recession. And again, it's so hard to know that for sure. I mean, you look at the current labor market and you go, wow, like if everybody is employed and gainfully employed, which almost the entire US is right now, are we really talking real recession? I don't know. I mean, our numbers are still going up. You know, we're still looking at this month. We're up again, quite a bit over our last year same time. You know, is in North America as a whole. So it's
I
a
think
big question mark.
Bad times sometimes make businesses into better businesses, right? And it's a chance to evaluate and say, where's my, you know, where can I be more efficient? And whether it's going to be a recession this year, next year, 10 years from now, 8 years from now, or never, don't you want your business to be the healthiest? Why pay for shipping? Why not have inventory? Like, it's just basics. I feel like if free shipping is an option, everybody should try and take advantage of it as often as possible.
Yeah, and this is the time that you see exactly that, right? Accounts reflecting on their current situation, which is amazing because, you know, as you know, our reps 99.9% of the time do not work on what we would call a cold call situation, right? It's almost never, maybe on the dealership side where, like, let's say we're working with the dealer group and we've got two of the dealerships on hand and then they want us to go over and talk to the gym. But even that's more like a warm lead, right? But 99.999% of the time, it's incoming inquiries. Well, our inquiries are skyrocketing right now. I mean, literally almost unmanageable. And my reps are going, hey, why is this happening right now? And I go, well, I'll tell you exactly why it's happening right now. Because in bad times, if there's going to be a bad time, which is a very big if, I don't think there is. I'm really hoping that there isn't, of course. Maybe there will be. I'm obviously making sure that if there is, I'm protected. But in bad times, you know that customers are going to feel that they're going to have the opportunity to get the best, highest level product at the least expensive price point. So that's the last time that you're going to want to have a no-name brand. And I mean a consumer awareness no-name brand, not an industry no-name brand. A consumer awareness no-name brand is going to have the lowest impact because it's at these moments that you feel you can get your best deal, right? Rolex has supposedly got a 2.5-year waiting list for a Pepsi or a root beer or a Batman. Well, now a lot of people are like, maybe Rolex is going to be down to a 1-year wait list, and maybe in a few months I'll be able to pick one up. Well, that's the moment that you're going to be looking for that high-level brand name to try and score the deal. So this is why XPEL is currently being sought after, because these independents are going, if I ever get on with XPEL, now is the time I need to do so more than ever before, again, because of that consumer awareness. So it's kind of interesting how this is changing the narrative right now.
So the all-in option for Gap and coatings, that's obviously been like a great subject for a while now.
Yeah. Since the day I started it, I think it's been the most contentious topic that's ever existed.
And this week there was a post about it, you know, and it's nobody can really decide what's going on. So let's, you know.
Yeah, I mean, look, number one is that there's some confusion happening, right? Confusion number one is that we are going to our existing accounts and telling them that they actually don't have a choice. That is the farthest thing from the truth. As a matter of fact, I just had an amazing conversation with an account that was handled by an amazing rep that was part of the merger, Adam Ferris. Him and I did a 3-way call while I was in Chicago. I remember I was sitting in the car in Chicago waiting to, or no, I'm sorry, I was in New York City. I'm lying to you. Anyways, I was in New York City. I was waiting to go to Henzo Gracie Jiu-Jitsu downtown in right by Madison Square Garden. And I had about an hour to do this phone call with Adam and really set the record straight is probably the right language. We have a huge customer base that 100% was a part of XPEL's success, right? Part of driving that awareness of XPEL came from our independent shops. Did we do an incredible job with our marketing campaigns, which was led originally by, you know, Michael Dobbins, and then of course multiple other people afterwards? Yes. Did we do a much better job than everybody else did on that? Yeah. Other than of course maybe ceramic coatings, where we all have to recognize Ceramic Pro for doing an amazing job on that themselves. But those customers really did, again, help us get to where we are. And it's a worldwide phenomenon, right? This is not just a North American phenomenon. And so what we didn't want to do is we didn't want to ostracize the clients that helped us get there and making them feel as though they're not being appreciated. That is total BS. And if anybody says that to them or uses that language, I will personally have a conversation with that individual. What we did want to be fair with that opportunity is to say, hey, look, you did help us get here, but you're not exclusive with us. And one of the things that you've been asking from us repetitively and expected from us repetitively is for us to continue turning down clients around you because you buy a fair amount of product. And by a fair amount, that changes, right? I mean, you can be in a small area where you've got a population of 15,000 people and maybe you're spending 40 or 50 grand a year. You might be in a greater metropolitan area where you're spending $350,000 a year. At the end of the day, both accounts are awesome accounts, right? We have accounts that spend in the millions per year. We have accounts that spend tens of thousands per year. We genuinely love all of them. But again, all those accounts knew that we had been declining account after account after account, that we just don't take everybody's money. And there are brands that do, and I don't fault them for that at all. That's a fantastic way of doing business that works for them. Mm-hmm. And hey, hats off to them, that works for them. That's not what we were after. But it was just way too one-sided, right? It was just, hey, you walk into their shop and you're seeing other brands on the wall, and you're seeing other brands in the quotes because you're getting quotes from some of their competitor XPEL shops saying, hey, this guy's undercutting me and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, man, like, why is this such a one-way street? And that's not fair. To tell me that you have been loyal to me is not language that's going to go over for me. I'm just calling it like it is. You have been loyal to yourself, and yes, you've been a great customer. We've had a great client relationship with each other, client-vendor relationship, but we're not loyal and we're not partners. Partners don't use others. Partners only use them, each other. And so you telling me that you're loyal because you're using my DAP for years is ridiculous in my mind. When you're not telling the customer it's because of the pattern that made this install, a big part of this install, look as good as it does. You're talking about the film that's on it. It's got a great warranty and it's got this great glossy finish to it and stuff like that. And, look at how nice we made that install, right? And I'm just like, man, like, what are you talking about loyalty for? Like, come on. Like, yes, we had a mutual relationship. It was not one-sided. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just you. I'm not suggesting it was. But the word loyal is not fair and accurate. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to go back to those clients and say, look, you were here first. And what we want to do is we want to give you the opportunity to decide if you're looking for an awareness of us being sort of protective of each other. Mm-hmm. And they want to understand what that's defined as. And I understand, and I would want the same, right? I mean, again, as you know, I used to co-own and run a very successful operation with my amazing business partner, David Glendenning, right? So I would ask the same question. So like the answer is, look, we look at any geographical area and we decide how much are we selling inside that geographical area now, and then therefore how much more can it sustain. But let's assume that the geographical area has got 1 million people. Let's just use that number to make this super simplistic. Well, we would like to get to a point where we're selling in the United States $1 million in that geographical area per year, $1 per person. That is something that's super attainable. We do in a lot of our geo markets already, but there's obviously a lot of geo markets where we don't. In Canada, by the way, the target's much higher. It's double that. It's $2 a person, but that's because they have a much higher penetration per person in paint protection film. It's much more utilized on daily drivers than it is in the US, although that's obviously changing real quick right now. But the initial target was $1 per person. So we're looking at it and we're going, well, what if that shop is doing $500,000? Okay, well, should that count towards that $1 million threshold? And then we went, well, but wait a second, that shop is only paint protection film with us. But they also do window tint, they also do ceramic coating, they also do flat glass. And we're like, but we're not getting any of that. So that shop is actually asking for us not to sell to the tint shop that's down the road that happens to do paint protection film and coating maybe as well, or the flat glass operation, that detail operation. And most of the time, the thing they're most protective of is PPF. But at the end of the day, again, it was just too much to ask for this one-way position or situation. So I just said, nope. Like, you want the marriage? I'm all in. I love marriage. You know, my wife, Tatiana, and I have been married now for a number of years. We've got 2 kids. And, we're very obviously loyal to each other. There's no cheating on either part. But I can tell you that if I cheated even just once, then she'd be out the door and that would be the end of it. And same vice versa, you know? And so we kind of look at accounts that same way. And, I had this conversation with this account this morning. They have 4 shops in a very, very, in a phenomenal metropolitan area. And they're considering switching over from a big brand name over to us. And they wanted to understand that better. And I went through it with them. And I said, look, like, that $500,000 shop that's not loyal is not part of that number. It's just not. It just doesn't make sense for it to be. But let's recognize that they get first right of refusal, right? So again, going back to the shop that I was on the conversation with Adam Ferris, like, look, we would love for that to be you first and foremost. You earned that conversation from us. Yeah. Like think about it. How often do you think we could go into a market and go and look for a bigger opportunity, a bigger shop opportunity, like a Sunstoppers as an example, or an Automotive Elegance, right? And go after a shop like that? Yeah, well, we probably could get it, probably easier than almost anybody else could in terms of like a cold call situation, but we don't. And we recognize again that the people that were here with us for a long time or even a shorter period of time are still part of the reason why we're here at this moment. And it's helped us get to this situation, hence the reason why we want to do the all-in. But all in is all in. It's the reality is that to pretend that we are the best at every single segment, the best at customer service, the best at coding, the best at paint protection film, the best at window tint, the best at maybe the best at software marketing we might have locked down. But the other ones, there's definitely a room for argument that there's amazing other opportunities besides us. And we certainly don't pretend to be the cheapest either, for that matter. But at the end of the day, we believe that we have the most complete solution currently on the market by quite a long shot. And yes, the other brands, especially the top brands, are aware of that, and they're gunning for us, and they're putting focus and effort on that. Yes, of course, we're certainly aware of that too. But this moment, this is the time where this brand is currently in the driving position, and that's why we're looking for these marriage situations or partnerships. We have some that are still going to say, hey, sorry, but I want to maintain just a client-vendor relationship. We're still going to love you. We're still going to treat you well. You're still going to be able to qualify for your we're still going to be able to qualify for your tiered pricing, the same as everybody else. Mm-hmm. There may be some other things that we're going to take away. We're certainly working right now in Southern Florida and some other markets where if you're not exclusive, you're not on the locator, because the locator is an XPEL locator. We don't want a customer going to the XPEL locator, clicking on that dealer website, and then being brought to a page that also advertises 3M, Suntech, Ceramic Pro, Lumar. That's just not smart for us. So, the fact that that's currently going on in Southern Florida and some other markets, it's going on in Calgary now, I think, as well. Where we've got something like 100 XPEL operations in just one city. Again, this is something that I think makes a lot of sense. Whether or not we do that countrywide or not, hey, well, time will tell based on how well the project rolls out. But yeah, it's the fact of the matter is, it's so funny to me that when I have the conversation, when I personally have the all-in conversation with accounts, they always at the end of every conversation say, hey, at the very least, I understand where you're coming from. I really get it. It makes a lot of sense for your perspective. Does that mean that they take it? Maybe not. But I can tell you that of all of the, remember this too. Everybody comes to us asking us for an account. We don't go to them asking for their account. They come to us asking for their account. Obviously, there's a couple of situations where that's not true. So again, I'm not trying to say that's a 100% carte blanche rule, but 99% for sure, it's at least that high, if not higher. Mm-hmm. You came to me asking to represent this brand. This brand. Mm-hmm. I didn't come to you asking for you to represent it. So if you want to represent it and the situation works well for both of us, we would love to have you as that partnership, that opportunity to come on board. This is what it looks like. If it doesn't work for you now, hey, no harm, no foul. We're not going to be pissed off at you. We're not going to think lower of you. We still think you're an amazing operation. We still wish you nothing but the best. And maybe you'll change your mind. And When you change your mind, please reach back out to us. As long as we can still facilitate bringing on an account in that area, we'll gladly look at bringing you back on. As you just recently, an account, agreed to come like maybe 3 months after the all-in conversation started. The account declined it, said, hey, in my market, I don't think I could ever get there. They're in a market where they're convinced it's maybe not as upper scale as some of the other XPEL markets are.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, hey, cool. Well, since then, it's actually in Georgia's territory, right? Southern Florida. He brought on another account in that market. They just reached out like 2 or 3 days ago saying, hey, you know what? We're going to take the all-in offer after all. And we're like, look, really, really sorry, because we actually would have loved to have taken you on a number of months back when we made the proposition. But because you didn't, there was another partner that came on board. And even though they might actually buy more is what I should say, and therefore, ultimately make a better bottom line for XPEL and for everybody involved, that's not how we operate, right? So we declined the offer from them to bring them on board, and that can happen. But as long as it doesn't, then, we're more than comfortable in having it. Clear Card Concepts, right? I'm going to talk about my good friend Rob Stetler and Janelle. They were using DAP. This is an account in Atlanta. It's where of course Tim Ham is with Felony Film, my dear friend, right? Who does this awesome job at wholesale market.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Clear Card Concepts is a wholesale market driven business too, and they had told me verbatim, look, your software is not as landlocked as you think it is. There's other great software brands out there, and screw you. We're not interested in the all-in XPEL offer, and we're out of here. We're going to go with our other brand, and we're going to use their patterns, and we'll be great without you, and watch how much we walk all over you. And, Rob called me back maybe 2 or 3 months later and was like, hey, Chris, how are you? And I was super nice to him, super polite with him, even though the conversation was a little heated between the two of us, more heated between his wife and I than him maybe the time before. And we laugh about it now because we've become good friends with each other. But, they reached back out and I pretend like nothing happened. They pretend like nothing happened. And he asked, hey, what does it look like to revisit that conversation? And I said, well, hey, the bonus is that opportunity is still open for you. They took advantage of it. And, this year, that account, I don't know if he'd be okay with me expressing this out loud or not, but I can tell you that account is going to turn into one of the top 10 accounts in North America for XPEL. And that's a dramatic turnaround for an account that told me, basically get lost because your patterns aren't as good as you think they are. And there is other amazing patterns. So now coming back to me a few months later saying, okay, we tried the other patterns out. We thought they were as good as yours. They're actually not. You're right. We were wrong. But rather than eating crow, can we just talk about moving forward? And we all did. And, because I'm so upfront and not willing to just say what you want to hear, yeah, there's times where accounts and I don't see eye to eye. But at the end of the day, we respect each other's opinion, understand where we've gotten to, and move forward with it.
Is there any sort of concept as to, out of all the PPF that gets installed in, let's say, North America or, in a year, how much approximately is being cut on a plotter using any software versus how much is being installed bulk just with the blade?
So it's funny because you will hear a lot of accounts say that they're bulkers. A lot. It's not true. A lot of accounts are not bulkers. I then go and visit the operation, and what they're doing is they're doing modified patterns, right? And there are very few paint protection film shops that are not doing modified patterns. Let me be very clear about that right now. Remember that the original pattern design is patterned to have around a 1/8 of an inch of a gap line from the edge of the roll of the panel for the purpose of staying stuck there for 10 years without, pulling back, right? And so with that in mind, the pattern is designed that way on purpose. But, in this day and age, a lot of customers have been made aware of the idea of rolled edges and, unexposed corners and things like that, and where it's almost more like a vinyl installation than a PPF installation in terms of the coverage.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go and look at it, they're still ultimately modifying the pattern and then storing it in DAP as a modified pattern instead, right? Protex Cams, a great example where Dave would get in. Let's say the night before, he knew all the vehicles were coming up the next day. He would get in and he would start working all the patterns if they weren't already stored, modified in there. And he would modify all the patterns and go, okay, well, over here we can give it a 1/4 inch of a wrap, and hey, well, over here we'll leave it the way it is, and blah blah blah. And then he would save that and he would nest it so that you were maximizing your film usage on that roll to have as little film waste as possible. And again, getting back to like now more so than ever, right? If you're going to be watching your bottom line, which you should just in case, this is where this is more important than ever before. So, that's a modified pattern. That is not a bulk. But have I seen bulk installations? Yeah, I mean, exclusive vinyl, right? My good friend Roman on Long Island is an example where I don't know if he ever touches a plotter. Like, his guys have all come, most of his guys have come from a background where they were installing vinyl and then trained to install paint protection film, very similar to vinyl. And they do nothing but custom bulk installation. And do I know for a fact that pattern is staying stuck long term in that really tight corner by that fog light where it would normally pop? I don't pretend that I know or don't know. And of course, I don't want Roman pissed off at me afterwards saying, hey, are you suggesting that my patterns, the way I install doesn't last? That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I don't know the answer well enough on a personal level. Yeah. But to try and get back to your answer, my suspicion is that at least 90% of PPF in North America at this moment is being installed with a pattern design of some nature. And again, maybe I should say starting with the pattern and then again going modified. Some guys, of course, are using other pattern companies, which are, let's say, less than desirable, if you will. And so maybe they're installing multiple times with the pattern, right? But that's so that they can ultimately get to a stored pattern that will be usable next time, right? They plot off the original one. Yeah, it's got a 1/2 inch missing over here. It's got it's too low to the tow hook over here, blah, blah. They're mucking with it, and then they're replotting it, and then they're hopefully getting it right the second time, and certainly hopefully not a third time, and then storing it as a go forward pattern. But you go to like places like Colorado, and a lot of guys in Colorado still bulk. I personally don't think that's the smart way of doing business. I understand why you'd want to, but from a business owner's perspective, it's a massive amount of film that you're definitely wasting. You can't convince me otherwise.
Right.
You can tell me I'm wrong, but I've been in the business long enough and seen hundreds of stores of installation. You'll never get to the point where I agree with you on this. And I think you're just purposely arguing because you just don't want to switch. And I do believe that, especially on things like bumpers, the level of detail that you think the customer is after is what Chris West uses as a term that I love. He actually used this with an amazing operation, Auto Paint Guard, of Ryan Burroughs, an Auto Paint Guard just recently. He said, you guys are over installing, meaning that what you find at fault, never in a million years is a customer going to find that at fault. And so rather than over installing, let's look at what's a little bit more reasonable and understand that at the end of the day, this has got to be a successful business, which of course it is, but even more successful business to be able to afford ongoing expansion, ongoing marketing, ongoing, customer satisfaction, and of course, save for the rainy day.
Does XPEL put out any sort of resource that a shop could use kind of as a guideline, maybe for themselves, but also for reference for a customer that may have those expectations from probably a Facebook group, like a consumer Facebook group? Like if you're in a Tesla group, you're instantly going to get transformed into a different type of Tesla owner than if you just went into a place. Your expectations change completely because some of the claims people make just as Tesla owners in there are outrageous. So then you wonder if that's true, and then you point the position at the shop. Is there any sort of guidelines or what would you suggest when you have those sorts of customers to be able to say, hey, look, this is how the product's meant to go on. It's not meant to be, it's not your clear coat. It's a protection,
Yeah. I mean, you try your best. I mean, you certainly give a lot of guidance as a rep to your individual accounts. And I think that I think that in fairness, all the manufacturers do a good job with that. I don't think that that's just an XPEL thing. I certainly know that I've heard that from a number of really good reps out of some of the other companies. You know, Bryce out of Eastman is I've never met him in person, but an amazing rep. Hey, Dave Domenico and some of his guys that were Premium Show, which are now part of Eastman. You know, again, lots of very positive feedback from them. My good friend Manny, which you had on here, right, which is EPD and a big representation for 3M. You know, they have really good candid conversations with their accounts. And you know, Rob Freeman from Proform says it best, right? This is paint protection, not paint perfection. I feel like he invented that terminology in the very beginning because he's been around that long doing it, right? One of the very first in the US. And so we try and utilize that with our clients. And look, we tell them, look, it's really easy. You can personally go as any consumer to XPEL's website, xpel.com, and pull up your year and make and model and drop down screens, and you can see the patterns that are available, and you can see that there's no wrapped edge, you know, where the fender is meeting the bumper. Like, you can see that. It's very clear and decisive. And there's a reason why, and it's because film is not reasonable to be stuck inside there and stay stuck inside there where that bumper is 100% moving as you're driving down the road, and it's going to back rub that, you know, that two pieces of film together and then, you know, push backwards, right, and have a pucker mark. So, and that's not film failure, right? That's over installation. That's not a manufacturer's fault. And that's why manufacturers, XPEL included, will sit there and say to a claim, so sorry, but you did that. We didn't do that. You know, we didn't tell you to do that. Then what you're doing is over installation, and that's not covered because it's not a film failure. So look, do you have the situation where you have great accounts? You have these partnered accounts where you're like, hey, you know what? Like, you guys did something you shouldn't have done. Let me help out a little. Hey, let me send you some free film at least to help offset some of this cost. Yes. And are we the only ones doing that? No. I know that Eastman does that. I know that again, the 3M representation does that a lot as well, right? XPEL's not the only ones that are doing a great job in that space. But, you know, at the end of the day, if you read the warranty disclaimers from all manufacturers, there's a lot in there, and there's a reason for it, you know, and we're going to make sure that if crap hits the fan, we're protected.
Yeah. Definitely never read those warranty things personally because they're too.
Some of them are really
so different.
Like,
you know?
I read one where it was like you have to wash your car with a 300, you know, count microfiber only, and I'm like, I don't even know how you could prove that I did that or didn't do that, but that's interesting,
right? All right. Next on the list is XPEL corporate stores. How many corporate stores do you think there are approximately in the continental?
Hold on.
Yeah.
So in Texas, we have San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas. We have Mike Mail's shop, right, which we acquired and merged with. Acquired, shouldn't use that word acquired. There I go, right, breaking our own rules. Merged with in Vegas. We have Boise, Idaho. 5. We have the one in Montreal, of course, which was my good friends Sylvain and Bobby. Wow, I can't believe I was going to forget Bobby's name. 6. And then we have the one in Calgary. 7.
Did you mention Austin, Texas?
Austin. Do we have Austin? Oh, we do have Austin. You're right. So that's another one.
It was Dave Jones.
So that sounds like 8. So I think we have 8
okay.
Corporate stores. And, you know, my good friend John, I always butcher the name of his shop, so he should hate me for it, but I always say it's Gulf Shield. I'm pretty sure this time I got it right. John is in one of those markets, and John is a very vocal partner of ours. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure he's 100% exclusive to us. We were going to open up a corporate store in the market that he's in. And he was super vocal about how he thought this was going to be a very bad move for him and for XPEL in general. And we were like, look, John, you need to have a little faith in why we're doing it and how we're doing it, and understand that we believe that this is going to be super beneficial for you. I know that if we were to cold call him right now, three-way call him right now, he would tell you it's the best thing that ever happened to him. We show him his growth rate charts versus the rest of the city that he's in, XPEL accounts, and he's crushed those other ones, almost 4 times higher in current sales since we did that.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew why that would happen. And, you know, we knew that, number one, we're not looking to go and buy every single shop that's out there, every major shop that's out there, and acquire it, right? And that's the word acquisition in this case versus the word merger. There are key markets where we think it would be beneficial to have an XPEL operation, and there would be many reasons for that. A lot of it obviously is to do with testing. We love real world in-house testing on our products. When we can test our coatings and our window tints and our flat glass films and our paint protection films and any other products that we continue to come out with, chemicals and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
in all of those marketplaces, we know that we're getting true live data. Oh, right, we have the shop in the UK, which I missed, right? Tom's shop, that shop, of course, right? So that's another major one. And that's very, very beneficial for us. And that allows us to continue to spend millions upon millions of dollars into the development of all of our product offerings with this data. Now, do we have multi-million-dollar labs in San Antonio in that 120,000 square foot facility? Yes, as a matter of fact, every single trainee that goes through our tint, PPF, coating and correction, or flat glass training gets to see it live in person. We actually opened up the walls instead of making this big, huge secret, which is what it used to be. And there's glass windows that they walk past every single day in between those classes, and they get to see all these labs that we have going on where we can emulate UV and IR and acid rain and salt water and, fresh water. And I mean, it's unreal how much data we can collect. But at the end of the day, it's still a lab. I'm sorry, but it's still a lab. Is it beneficial? Yes. Is it outrageously beneficial? Yeah, otherwise we wouldn't have spent just in the latest amount of equipment, we spent over $1.5 million in those rooms. And of course we already had equipment from before. But real world testing is just as beneficial. And it's also for the installation purposes, right? We'll have people will complain about, hey, well, when I try and install this film, it doesn't seem to stick as well. Or when I try and install this coating, it's flashing too fast. Or when I install it on this, it's having a different reaction. I'm getting striping. And so when we have our own installers that are not biased, that are actual employees of XPEL with a management overseeing it all, that is governed, if you will, from a general management perspective, super, super important data. Chris West is the person who's in charge of all that right now. And as you know, just since the Chris West coming on board full-time rather than an independent kind of like contractor for us exclusively, which is what he was before, has been monumental in some major developments with our films. And, Dean Mitchell's played a big part of that as well, as have quite a few others. But I think those two have been obviously the most instrumental. Again, this is data that you can get from this. So what happens is a lot of shops, and I mean a lot of shops, reach out to us saying, hey, we know that you guys do these mergers and we're actually interested in a merger with you. We think that for one of a number of reasons, sometimes the shop owner is genuinely burnt out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Been doing it for a lot of years, would like to maybe retire at this point, and go live on a beach or go live in the cottage and, go and enjoy their life because they've been pushing hard for 30 plus years, bent over in the back of a car, slamming film, right? And hey, nothing wrong with that. And they've earned that right to try and sell it. And when you're looking for a sale, who are you going to sell it to? Is there a lot of private investors in this industry? There isn't at this moment. So knowing that XPEL is one of those players is obviously a good reason to reach out. Number two is that sometimes they're reaching out because they have these really lofty goals in terms of what they want to get to for market dominance, but they can't do it on their own. They don't have the resources to do it on their own. They don't have the financial backing. They're not a multi-billion-dollar company. that's traded on a public stock exchange. You know, we're the only ones traded on NASDAQ. That says a lot. And so, you know, for those reasons, they still are type A personality and would like to see their baby grow into what it could become. And so they feel that this would be a very advantageous situation for us. And they'd like to be a part of it, right? I mean, who at this moment, well, I'm sure there would be some on this call that would for sure, of course, the naysayers would say no. But I mean, I always want to be in a winning team, right? I would always want to be in a winning team. I'm a competitor myself, as you know. It is a soloist style event, though. It's jiu-jitsu. It's one-on-one fighting. But at the end of the day, I want to win. And most of the shop owners, I type A personalities through and through. And because of that, they all want to win as well. So, you know, seeing that as a reason, and sometimes it's not a good reason. Sometimes it's that they are, unfortunately, more of that installer mentality attitude, right? We've talked about this before versus a true, call it business owner. They haven't been able to morph into that mentality. And so maybe the business isn't quite as lucrative or as glamorous or as rewarding as they thought it would be. And they want out for those reasons instead. And, you know, so again, there's multiple reasons why they would approach us. And when they do, they typically will approach their rep. Although I think quite often the conversation doesn't happen with the rep. A lot of times they reach out to me and they say, hey, Chris, can you put my name in the hat? Now, let me be very clear about this. I do not do mergers and acquisitions at all for the company. We have a person that's specifically in that role. I think that this human being was custom tailored for that role. It's Mike Mail, who was previously the North American sales director. He's now in charge of mergers and acquisitions along with customer relations, which is, of course, very high level stuff. And I think that, again, straight up, I don't think that there's a job on the planet that could be more tailored for him and vice versa, that we could find a better person. So he's the person that I then put the information to. And what he does with it from there is unbeknownst to me. But again, you know, will we continue to do this? Will we continue to look at these opportunities? Yes, we will. And we're not hiding it. And again, everywhere where we go, the market gets insanely better. You know, John had a situation. He had COVID ripped through his shop. I mean, rip it. It was so bad. I had heard that he went from like 13 or 14 installers to like 2.
Wow.
And what happened was, you know, he reached out and said, hey, is there any way you can help out? We're like, yeah, we got you, baby. Even though we were booked solid, we contacted our clients and said, hey, we've got to unfortunately do some rescheduling because of COVID, which we told them the truth. We didn't tell them it was our COVID situation, but it was COVID. And we sent some installers over to John and we helped out John, you know, and we obviously do a lot more marketing. But what we don't do is marketing specific for just the store, right? It's overall market awareness. And so obviously we're pouring more geo-targeted money into that area or marketplace.
So actually, let me ask you about that. I'm curious so if you take like XPEL Houston, if I understand correctly, is not going to necessarily run ads saying like, come to XPEL Houston, this location, this shop is the best. We have the most reviews. We're the best place to get PPF in the area. It's going to be more of a general XPEL and a brand thing.
Combo. We definitely will make sure that we're still trying to keep up with some of our good operations in the area, because the thing you don't want to do, of course, is make it look like you guys, like we're second rate. That's not a good image for us either. Right. So what we'll do is like maybe do a spotlight video on the store and show like the fact that it's doing, obviously a nice looking shop with, decent installation, but is it at the same level that the independents are doing? No, definitely not. And again, using John as a very clear comparison, it's a really good example of that. Mike at Sunstoppers, as you know, has now got an operation running in Dallas, right in the Dallas area. Again, somebody that we're nowhere even close to competing with on marketing strategy for an individual store. But I can tell you that we already allocate a percentage of budget to nothing but marketing. And a lot of that marketing budget is spent on, Google SEO and things of that nature. And that's generalized, right? And so it is going to, when the more that we have spent with us in that market, including our own stores, that's an automatic allocation of funding. Does that make sense?
It does.
So, and the last part is that, you know, if you were to go to, I mean, we don't intend the independent stores to be distribution networks, but they end up being distribution networks. And a lot of times, like, I know this just actually happened just the other day in Boise. A person, one of the shop owners, a good shop owner, had ordered some product. The product, the shipping company left the product outside on the doorstep, soaking rain. Product got destroyed, and shop had XR Plus window tint that he was charging the client like upwards of $1,000 through their vehicle coming in that day, right? Went to the Boise location and said, hey, is there any chance I'm allowed to buy? Yeah, of course, no problem. Here you go. And took a box off their own shelf and sold it. You know, I visited a number of the Dallas shops, a number of my apologies, a number of the XPEL shops in Texas, and every one of them does that. I know the Vegas one does that for sure, as does, I know for a fact our Montreal one does, although it wouldn't make sense to, because you have the Montreal distribution center right there. And we do also in Calgary. So more than likely you would just, you know, utilize the shipping depot there versus the store.
Do you have any insight into how corporate stores price their services? Because I would think, like, if you're down the street from XPEL Houston, your thoughts are, number one, I don't want them to undercut me, is number one, and probably your number 2 and 3. So how does that work?
Yeah, that's actually number 1, 2, and 3 for sure. I think that is the general, you know, rule of thumb that the person's very concerned about. And again, we actually purposely will do market research on price points from the independent XPEL shops. And at least 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, we're the highest price on purpose, as we should be, right? We're trying to set a higher benchmark than anybody else to deal with XPEL as a brand, because we already are thought of from the consumer mindset as the high-end brand in the market. So why would we want to lose that? And again, the last thing you want to do is piss off all your independents. You know, I know for a fact that in Vegas we're the most expensive. You know, maybe somebody new comes along and they're like, maybe an operation from another area, and they're like, you know, like imagine Protective Film Solutions, right? One of the most famous shops, if not the most famous shop in the world, other than maybe Detail and Dynamics, right up there with them. You know, I think that, you know, if Ryan Townsley was to go into any market, he would probably be the most expensive. So my suspicion is if he decided to open up a shop in Dallas, which I'm not saying he ever would, but if he did, I would be surprised if he wasn't the most expensive. But again, you know, he's got that reputation that would garner that command for that price point from him. And I don't think that he would sit there and say, well, XPEL, you've got to raise your price to match mine because of it. You know, Again, he's
it's even better for him to be at the highest price, because he can see it's a premium. I mean, you want to be the high price. Like, that's the reality. If you have all your other ducks in a row, that's the position to be in, is the highest price. As long as your other ducks in a row to justify it. That's best.
It affords everything else. It affords everything else.
Right.
I have very rarely, I think that in all the operations that I've visited over time, I think I can genuinely say that I've never seen an operation that has been low price that was actually successful. And by successful, I mean able to walk away from the operation and rely on management to take over everything that they were doing, and to go away for a few weeks and know that when they came back, it was as if they never left. To me, that's true success. You know, that is what Mike Burke has really built at this moment. Man, the guy just suddenly took off to the UK. I didn't even know he was going. I was just talking to him like the day before, and the next day I'm talking to him, like, where are you? And he's like, oh, I'm in the airport. I'm like, where are you going? He's like, I'm going to London. For what? He's like, I just want to go hang out for a week. And I'm like, oh man, damn, like, how jealous am I of you for that? But it's, you know, it is a big factor in terms of what he's put in place to do that. And you know, is Charlotte the most expensive area in the US? No. But I can tell you that Sunstoppers in Charlotte is not the most expensive, but they're certainly nowhere close to the cheapest. You know?
So on the topic of pricing, even just like maybe inside of XPEL, but just in general, is it, you know, shops undercutting and like offering super, super cheap, like unbelievable to retail prices is always a thing that gets everybody riled up for all brands. And is it against the law or just against your like better business practices or like where a manufacturer would want to be able to say, hey, look, these are going to be some minimum prices in place. Somehow this is a minimum. You definitely can charge way more, but nobody in our dealer network, if you're caught charging less or something, you know, like an iPhone, you very rarely can get an iPhone on sale. That's kind of the concept. Like, is that a thing or is that not a thing? Because when you go to, there's certain dealer meetings you can go to where they specifically play an audio to everybody to make it clear you are not allowed to talk about pricing. That can never be spoken about. And it seems like because it becomes like price fixing or what's the deal?
XPEL gets involved in those conversations all the time, and we're not afraid of them.
Okay.
The idea that it's illegal, look, the problem is that if you get 10 lawyers in a room, half of them are going to say it is and half of them are going to say it isn't. Because at the end of the day, if somebody's willing to pay them to represent them to say that it is or isn't, they're going to take the money. Right. And it's all about interpretation of law, right? Mm-hmm. So I can tell you that we have in-house legal counsel, and I have asked in-house legal counsel about this specific conversation or topic many times, and we really dived into it. And because of the Sherman Act, which I'm very, what's the right word? I'm really glad, if you will, that the Sherman Act was brought around when it was and for the reasons that it was. And I think that it's fantastic that it's in place, right? But the Sherman Act, in essence, was sort of like, from what I can gather and gain from a historical perspective, and it's my interpretation of it, just to be clear, I'm not saying that I've had some professor spell this out for me, but it's what I've been able to glean from reading, is that there was a time in place where manufacturers and or distributors or resellers, if you will, were creating an unfair business practice by selling to white-owned operations and businesses at a lower price than colored-owned operations and businesses. And you know, this is a super serious topic for me. Me being Jewish of descent, my brother-in-law is Jamaican, my niece is mulatto, and so, you know, I being Jewish in background, and a lot of my family dying in the Holocaust from my mom's side, and my again, the mentions of my brother-in-law being Jamaican and my niece being mulatto. I've seen racism a lot in my life, and it's very disturbing. And so to understand that there was a time where, you know, your intention was to make sure that a white business, if you want to call it that for all intents and purposes, was making more profit and being more competitive than to let's say an African American owned operation down the road. That's where the Sherman Act, from what I understand, came about, and I applaud it, right? Fantastic. But there's a lot of generalizations that are taken from that to assume that you are not permitted to talk about price. And from what I can glean from our counsel, that is not completely accurate. Now, what you have to be is consistent, but you can decide on an individual market that does not have to be the entire United States. As an example, maybe it's just a state by state, maybe it's a city by city, maybe it's a county by county. I don't know, right? Because it's not like XPEL has certainly set up some kind of like standardized pricing model. But what we have been very comfortable in doing is saying to accounts, look, you're devaluing the brand XPEL. And, you know, we have no intention of being thought of that bargain basement brand from anybody, especially the consumer. We've spent too much time and effort building ourselves up as the Louis Vuitton of the film and coding world, right? And so if you're going to diminish that or hurt that image on us, then hey, like, we understand that for you, maybe price point is the way you need to operate for your business. We're not saying that doesn't work for you. We're just saying that then XPEL is not a good fit for you. And, you know, look, at the end of the day, every single one of us as a manufacturer has the right to sell or not sell to you. Now, obviously, you can't do things like, well, the reason why I don't want to sell to you is because your name is also Chris, and I don't like anybody else with the same name, Chris. Or, you know, the fact that you're also Jewish. You know, I'm Jewish. I don't like dealing with Jewish people. Well, in my case, obviously, it's not that. It's probably the opposite of anything, but regardless, that's a good example of it, right? That's something that you can't do, and you shouldn't be allowed to, and I'm glad that you're not allowed to. But can you say that an account is not a good fit for you? Yes. And do they say the same thing in return? Look, am I allowed then to turn around and force every single store to carry my product? Can I go to any single operation and say, hey, you must sell me? No. Do you think, therefore, I must sell to you? No. Let's not be ridiculous again. There's a reason why you apply to be a Mercedes-Benz dealer or a BMW dealer, and they choose yay or nay. And do you want to have a Starbucks? Well, they're not franchised. You want to have McDonald's franchise? Again, yay or nay. And, and all these rules and contingencies come into play. And do they make the same decision in every single given area the same way? No.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that many a time we will find an account where they are utilizing what we call a pricing strategy to try and garner market share away from somebody else. And we're 100% very comfortable in saying to them, look, this is not good for our dealer network. We're really trying very hard to get our dealer network to work with each other, as you saw at our XDC, right? Our dealer conference, how incredibly passionate our dealer network is with each other, and how friendly they are with each other. I mean, you have shops in that room that are a mile down the road from each other that are treating each other like best of friends.
Yeah.
And
100%.
I've actually had other brands reach out to me, and I won't say the brands in this case because I don't think that's fair to them, but I have had other brands reach out to me and have personal conversations with me saying, I don't know how you guys get away with it, because when we try and do it, there's fistfights going on in the room. And I'm like, it's just because we are comfortable in setting expectations in our conversation with people in the beginning. And I think it's also getting back to the fact that we don't sell to everybody, right? Like, if we sold to anybody and everybody, and I don't mean I don't know if any brand literally sells to anybody and everybody, but there are some brands that clearly sell to just about anybody and everybody. I think maybe that's an example of where you really wouldn't be able to have those kind of conversations, because you can't prove I think what you would call basically a track record of what you're trying to attract as the right operation to represent your brand.
So one last question on the corporate stores. If somebody wanted to open a non-corporate store, their own private store, but they were, they approach XPEL and they say, hey, look, I'm in Asheville and I want to open XPEL Asheville. I want it to be fully XPEL. I want it to be a yellow building. We're going to put XPEL on the front. There's no other names. I want the inside. I want your support to make it look like the XPEL Apple store, like your best example, blah, blah, blah. Would XPEL say you can't actually do that because you're looking like us and you're not us? Or would they say, hey, that sounds like a great idea. Let's rock and roll?
So we have a number of operations that genuinely look like they are, in fact, a corporate store. We have one in particular that's actually called XPEL of Triad. Now, let me be fair to XPEL of Triad. They came on, I think, 15, 16, 17 years ago when we were a pattern company. We weren't even distributing film when they came on board. And so maybe at that time we thought, hey, who cares if they use our name?
Right.
I actually don't know the answer that if you wanted to call your shop, let's say XPEL of Asheville, could you do that or not? I'll find out that answer, because I think it's a great question. It's actually one of the very few times it's come up, but it has come up once before that I can remember. And I actually the person never ended up, I reached back out to the person to sort of understand more of what they were asking, and the communication never continued. But in the end, I never got the answer for that. But what I can tell you is that, yeah, we most of the time will actually strongly encourage the shop to literally look like an XPEL facility. We will, most times, I'm not saying always, but most times, we will take the money out of our pocket. Look, some of our other competitors, what they're doing is they're doing things like a point system, right? Every time you buy products, you get points, and those points can be allocated towards marketing materials. As an example, you want that wallboard, but that wallboard's going to be 2,000 points. And if you spend $2,000, you've got and I'm not saying that's the numbers, just trying to use that as a fictitious example.
Return.
Yeah, and that's cool. But we don't, right? We spend absorb obscene money on direct-to-consumer targeted marketing, as you know already from all our different things that we're doing. So we don't have that program, but what I can tell you is that when an account does a conversion, right? Usually most of the accounts are converting from other brands, right? Like, let me be clear, 95% of the accounts that XPEL takes on at this time are already utilizing somebody else and have said, hey, we don't want to utilize that brand anymore. We want to be an XPEL only operation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we want to make that operation as successful as fast as possible in co-branding with us. And so it only makes sense for us to put money into that shop with us buying those wall boards and us buying those displays and us buying those, trifolds and things of that nature. Now, again, I can't tell you that that's done 100% consistently, because you have some operations where they don't want to maybe spend as much on an opening order as you'd like them to. Maybe there's limited funds at that moment, or maybe they just bought a ton of product, and so maybe you're going to parse it over time. But like in my case, and in most of the cases of the reps, when the shop comes on board, we're already like, hey, well, let's do a FaceTime video, or send me some pictures of your shop inside. Let me take a look what you currently got on display. Great. Well, let's replace all that with this. And yeah, and other shops that put the XPEL logo out front, yeah, there's no problem with that. We are fine with it if they are an XPEL partnered account, meaning they're XPEL exclusive. I'm not saying that there isn't situations where we permitted the XPEL logo out front if they're not 100% exclusive with us. Obviously, there's been some historical things and even some more recent things, but that's on a case-by-case scenario. For sure, the partnered are more than welcome to, and we've got quite a few that do it. My good friend Jason Carr at Guardian Security Window Film, he spent quite a bit of money putting that beautiful logo out front and with the backlit and everything like that, and it's stunning. And in turn, his shop does look like an XPEL shop.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen the outside of his shop in pictures, and I know the sign, and it is very nice. He's always had a very nice operation and invested in channel lettering signs out front.
Yep.
I just think that's an opportunity. It's business. There's always opportunity. And you're going to get some who say, hey, I want to market myself. I don't want to market the product. Well, then you can sell any product. But if you're right, because then it doesn't matter. So then you can just sell anything. Don't worry what it is. But the other side of that coin is you can go all in and have yourself a Starbucks, as it was brought up in the comments, or like as an XPEL store. And, as a previous shop owner, like there was times where I carried 3-4 brands, and XPEL was one of them. In our auto shop, we had XPEL PPF, and then we had 3 different types of tint. Then we had another security film for cars, and we had tinted, and it was so many films. And then when you go to market that, you're not doing yourself any favors, whether it be how you set up your shop, it's a pain in the ass, or how you set up your website or your marketing materials and your colors and it's a pain in the ass. So like having one brand and streamlining thing and be able to just get the consistent support from a brand is a luxury, whether I think people realize it or not, because
I've said this before. Look, I mean, if people don't choose the all-in XPEL program, I'm fine with it, of course, but I still suggest that whatever brand they go with, they should pick one brand and utilize just that one brand. I really strongly believe that. I think that you're doing such a disservice to yourself when it talks about interacting with the customers more than anything else.
Oh, yeah.
When a customer walks in your store and you've got 4 brands on the wall for tint or 3 brands on the wall for tint, but you're recommending just one, there's no trust from that customer that you're picking that one on their behalf. They're 100% thinking there's something behind why you're trying to get rid of that film for their car. You didn't magically think that, on that BMW 325iX, man, this film is the right film to go with, but that film wouldn't be That's total BS. There's no chance that a customer believes you when you're multi-branding. None.
They're going to at least ask you an extra question, which is why this one versus this one and this one. And now you're in that conversation where you didn't need to be.
And then how do you get to the answer? You don't. Now you backpedal. You watch this when you go to big box retailers. And I utilize this story all the time when I talk about this example with shops where they think that multi-branding is beneficial. And I go, well, do yourself a favor and go try and buy a TV at Best Buy. And I'm telling you, the sales rep's going to lock onto one television. And if you tell them I want an 85-inch flat screen TV, they're going to go and find one specific 85-inch flat screen TV. But you're going to look at the fact that they carry 4 other brands. You're going to go, well, what about these other ones? And they're going to talk to you about the other ones. They're going to do a little bit of backpedaling, but they're going to still come back to that one every time because they don't want to make it seem as though, hey, they weren't convinced that they were looking after you properly in the first place.
Right.
But in the back of your mind, you're only saying one thing. They're getting spiffed. They've got too much inventory. They don't have the other ones in stock. There's some reason for them trying to get rid of that one.
Yeah.
So whether you're with Suntech, Lumar, 3M, I don't care. Do yourself a favor and stick with one brand. You'll have a much more successful operation.
Easier time for sure.
Now, I'll tell you one negative thing real quick. We have a lot of people who try and display the XPEL brand in their websites, in their social media, and inside their shops that are not representatives of XPEL. Guys, I will remind all of you, we have in-house legal counsel and quite a large team. It does not cost us by the hour to have accounts sued for doing this. Please do me a favor. Don't be one of those shops, because I try really hard to have the rep reach out first before it gets to legal to say, hey, you're using our brand name without our permission. Please cease and desist immediately. They do not, just so everybody knows on this call, they do not have permission to just leave it alone. They have to get a response. They have to see proof of action that it's removed, because if they don't, they actually have to turn it over to legal. Once it turns it over to legal, it does not become any more expensive for me. It only becomes very expensive for you. And the last thing I want to do is see a shop put out of business for false representing our brand. And look, 3M has been doing this forever, and they've been doing a great job with it. And I applaud them for doing it. They've always been like, hey, we're protecting that logo, which they should.
Yeah. If another shop used their logo, their own logo, their shop logo to advertise in bait and switch, they would go bananas. So like, that's no way to run a business. It's not a matter of even like, it is a matter of ethics, but beyond that, like, you're not going to succeed doing that. There's no long-term success plan by doing that whatsoever.
Totally.
So, all right, questionnaire email that XPEL starts prospects with prior to jumping on the phone.
Yeah, this again is one that's come up again recently, and this is very interesting. So look, what happens is when clients reach out to try and purchase from us, they will either call into XPEL or they will go to xpel.com, and there's a link in there where you can inquire about becoming an installer for us, an authorized operation. Regardless of how you make your inquiry, that inquiry gets formatted in an email that goes to the sales rep. Now, remember that the sales rep is very busy all the time. And that's true for all brands, not just XPEL, but they're very, very busy individuals. And so they're doing their best to pay attention to their emails and pay attention to what's called a deal list. So we utilize a software program called NetSuite from Oracle, and NetSuite has got a deal list that's always live, and they can pull up their deal list and they can see, hey, well, who's inquired and who do I need to get back to? Well, a lot of times we're getting inquiries from people who've never owned an operation in this industry. They've been hearing about the tint business, or hearing about flat glass, or hearing about detailing and coating, or hearing about pre-protection film and how lucrative it is, and thinking that maybe this is an opportunity for them that they should look into. A lot of times it's an existing, an employee of an existing shop. Yeah. Sometimes they're existing XPEL shops, and they're trying to reach out to us. And obviously there's also times where there are shops that are reaching out to us that are right next door to a major operation that we already have, that's a partner of ours. We do not want to waste our time, and we do not want to waste their time with picking up the phone and having this long dialogue conversation to explain why we cannot look at them at this moment in time as a possible partner. But also imagine the difference in conversation from a guy who's owned a guy or girl, right? Because we got a lot of women who are business owners, of course, more and more so than ever before it's coming in, where they've been in business for 5, 10, 15 years. And they're very aware of everything that XPEL has to offer. And they're very aware of XPEL's all-in program. And they're very aware of their marketing and their DAP and films and coatings and everything. They're basically like, they're in a very different place than somebody who's either brand new or somebody who's not even in the business. Those are very different conversations that have to happen. And so we have this questionnaire that we send to every single individual. It goes in their email. We can see that the email didn't bounce back. We have full full visual insight into this, and we are looking forward to their response, because a lot of times when they first fill in the information, they fill in their home address. I don't know why anybody would ever do that. I've never done that in my entire life, where I've been like, with my own operation, with David, for instance, we never reached out to a vendor of any kind and said, well, let me tell you where we live at home to inquire about you. But I don't know why, but we get a lot of that. I mean, like over 50% of the
And
people
they have
who inquire
shops
about
and they
us.
still put their home?
Yes.
Or they don't have a shop?
Yes, yes. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Over 50% of the people who actually have shops, forget the ones that don't have shops.
Right.
I'm talking about the ones that do. Over 50% tell me where they live. I don't know why, but that's what's on there. So then we're like, oh, this is a home address. I can't even like garner information from this. And then we have to respond to it. Hey, can you please do me a favor and fill the questionnaire properly? It says right in there, please fill in your physical brick and mortar shop address. Oh, hey, please fill in what brands you're currently dealing with. Hey, please. So there's some phenomenal questions in this questionnaire that allow a rep to really dive hard into doing a vetting program. And that's what we do. And there are some other brands that do vetting as well. Mm-hmm. And we're not the originator of this, but this is something that's just super important to us to have that worthwhile conversation. Every single time I jump on an intro call, I always start out with the same thing. Hey, by the way, I really, really want to thank you for filling in the questionnaire, because it really gave me a lot of insight into your operation, which is going to help streamline this conversation and custom tailor it to your needs. Well, I mean, look, a lot of times the shop is telling me right from the get-go, they're only interested in tint. They don't do PPF. They don't do coating. They don't. Why do I want to talk about all that then with them? Like, and do they want to hear about all that stuff? They don't. Maybe they're only interested in flat glass. Maybe they're only interested in paint protection film. Maybe they do all those other things, but they're thinking they're only interested in one of our opportunities, which of course, we don't allow. So again, like, the questionnaire is integral for us to be able to respond properly to them in a conducive manner that's good for them and good for us and mindful for us. You get some guys who like respond with like, oh, well, if that's how you're going to be, then screw you. We're like, well, clearly this is not a good relationship in the beginning, because if you can, as a business owner, glean why we would ask these questions from the beginning, I'm kind of surprised. Maybe, again, we're back to that installer mentality that isn't really a true shop owner per se.
I'd say that's the questionnaire doing its thing. It's working. It's just working at stage one, which is you vet out the people who can't fill out a questionnaire or like are too like, because how's that person going to be to deal with? I'm just saying, like, at all.
And
if they can't,
they are impossible. Like, the worst part is this, right? They want you to call. Why? If you're too busy to fill in there's no chance it could take anybody more than 5 minutes to fill it. I mean, no chance it could take you more than 5 minutes to fill in those 9 questions. You expect me to jump on a phone and somehow know that you have time to do a back and forth conversation that's not custom tailored to you? That conversation could take hours. And I know this because when I first started working for XPEL, that's what I was doing. I was picking up the phone when a lead would come in and call them and go, hey, so I understand you're asking about XPEL. Well, yeah, I'm interested in your DAP. Okay, well, in order to understand DAP, do you guys do paper? And we would do back and forth quick. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm spending 2 to 2.5 hours on a freaking conversation where in 5 seconds I should have been able to tell that this guy actually isn't a good fit for us, because now I understand he doesn't even have a brick and mortar operation, the guy's not even in business yet. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, wow, am I really, really wasting my time? Which of course is devoted to my customers. My time is devoted to my clients, right? Sure. That's who I spend 99% of my time focused on. Am I only interacting with them? That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I'm spending all my effort and time in trying to understand what I can do next that's best suited for our existing client base.
Look, I think this is a perfect time to suggest that XPEL as a corporation takes the Tint Wiz technology pledge, and that pledge is to do away with phones completely and to focus on live chat communication, which is so scalable and so much better than repeating yourself over the phone, and better way to communicate, as well as email, because email is always going to be there. So live chat, email, you do away with your phones for good. Phone numbers go away completely. I hope you can take that to whoever needs to hear it and take.
No, we actually do some of that already in some marketplaces. We are in fact testing that in some marketplaces. Our marketplaces where we do WhatsApp purposely with customer support.
Yeah.
And
So
again,
much better.
we need to figure out if it's scalable and what have you, but
So
it's
listen,
working. I can tell you that it's working.
There's so many questions that come in for us, and it's just like canned response. Now, it's not bullshit response. It's we wrote that response, and instead of writing it 1,000 times, we wrote it once and we click respond. Then there's the automation, obviously, where there's chat bots that are going to say, I can tell what you said, and we have the answer. Here it is.
Right.
Here's a link.
Right.
You have any other questions? And I'm just saying those like that, just skimming that off the top, skimming like this question: how much does Tint Wiz cost? How many times would we answer that if we didn't have somebody that automatically answers that? We will never answer that question. It'll always be answered by a chatbot that gives our answer. And like that's one of those things. You got to skim it off the top, right?
Look, just like us, as you know, like we're doing away. Like, okay, it's not going away 100%. We'd like it to. I really wanted to, but I really am telling every client, look, stop calling in orders. We are not phone order takers. We're Amazon. You go and put everything in your cart yourself.
Yeah.
You go to checkout. You pick the shipping method. You don't need us.
Right.
You don't need us for that interaction. That is a waste of time for you to that call center, which we have an unreal call center, right?
Right.
It is structured around the idea of solving problems. Hey, my plotter is not working properly. Hey, my DAP won't open. Hey, I can't see my order. Hey, product showed up damaged. Okay, let's deal with that. But like, you can't call Amazon to order another, whatever roll of toilet paper.
Nope.
Like it's so antique.
Yep.
Look, there's a phone here in this hotel room, right? Let me call in my order. There's a customer coming in. Oh, hold on. Yeah. Okay, I'll call him back. Like it's so stupid.
So we have a comment, and it was perfect because this is who I wasn't thinking of John Little specifically, but I was thinking of the John Little kind of thought process, which is, he said, well, I'm too old school. That won't work for me. Now, I understand that thought process, right? Because we've run into that before. And what I'm simply saying is I feel like I'm doing a favor to somebody that has that thought process by forcing them to go, well, I guess you have to choose now. There's either nothing or this, because the ones who choose, okay, I'm going to try it, go, oh, that was a lot better. Oh, that's way fucking better. Like those people, I guarantee you, anybody who's calling in your orders over the phone, if you can go on your phone and just type it in and hit submit, you're done. It's my mom with Amazon. I signed her up for Amazon Prime. She freaked out and wanted me to cancel it. Next thing I know, she's using Amazon.
Yeah.
Now she's using Amazon. It was just like, at first she's like, I don't want to use that. And then the second you use it, you're like, this is the best thing. Why was I resisting? You just have to do it.
I can appreciate that. I have that same comment, right? Some people are like, look, I am too old school.
We all have our own things that we're old school with and we hold on to.
Yeah,
but
100%. So like look, at the end of the day, we completely got rid of the phone lines. I wish we have, but we haven't.
Take the pledge though. It's a 2023 pledge. We have time to implement it.
It's coming. It's coming at some point, I hope. Sooner than later. I need to, of course, because I'm not the only decision maker. I wish I was on some circumstances, but I'm not. But what I can tell you is that our customer support team is now going to work with the clients right then and there to say, hey, we're not going to place this order for you. We're going to walk you through how to do it yourself. Watch how easy this is. Please let us just show it to you so that you can stop staying on. Because the other problem is they get on the phone and sometimes that customer support line is tied up with a bunch of problems. Look, when Google has a problem and it goes down, or NetSuite goes down, or in other words, DAP, right? DAP can go down from NetSuite going down. Our phone lines blow up. And I mean, you literally will have like 150 people in queue.
Yeah.
You're sitting there, 3-hour wait time to place an order. Customers are coming in the whole time and what are you doing? You're not laying film. You can't. This is going to be a terrible install.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I don't know what to say. I understand it, but like you said, like look, if I can show my 96-year-old grandfather how to use Amazon, like you said, then there's no reason that a person that's doing invoicing and stuff like that in their shop can't do the same thing by XPEL.com. Click dealer login. It's already propagating their information for them if they stored it. And now they're just, oh, yeah, window tint, click. Oh, yeah, 20%. Oh, yeah, 40-inch, click. 2 boxes, click. Oh, it's in the cart, click. Okay, 2-day
Yep.
shipment, click. I mean,
So a suggestion to make that a little, like, to get people to do it a little more would be if it was a native app on their phone, so they're not even to go anywhere, they're just clicking, they're already logged in, they're literally picking the film, they're submitting it, and then, I'm just saying a native app, but the shortcut to that would be, even as a website, you can add, like, you could go to XPEL.com, dealer login, you could log in. Now you're on your login page. You can then go add that to your home screen. Anybody can do that from an Android or iPhone from any website. It adds the icon to the homepage, and it takes you back there already logged in, typically with a click, just like a native app. And if you do that, you're there already. I doubt you're going to want to call after you do that, and it's on your phone. Like, why would you want?
Yeah, I don't think so either. And like, XPEL has been working on an app for a long time. We're continuing to still develop it. I don't know when that's going to roll out, but that's no secret that that's coming. And that's going to make things insanely easier, but not just for that purpose. There's a whole lot that's going in behind that, and behind the scenes to go along with it. It's already in test phase right now, and I'm hoping that, certainly by SEMA, we are showing everybody how to use it and download the app right then and there and start utilizing it.
Cool. All right. Matthew Sand here asked, could we hear about the future of manufacturing for XPEL window film to meet rapidly growing demand while maintaining quality?
Yeah, so look, the question that we get a lot of times with this is that, first of all, does XPEL, quote unquote, manufacture their own film, such as, for instance, Eastman? The answer is no. We have all of our films custom manufactured for us. You can't find our films in another box. We have our own set of engineers who come up with everything from the PSAs to the release liners to the VLTs to the color to the specs. And then we work with large companies, not only, more than one. Everybody thinks they know who it is. They're so wrong, because there's more than one. There's some that is, there's some that's domestic, and there's some that is not. And we do that on purpose, because one of the things that we saw, as a matter of fact, everybody saw this past summer, last summer, I should say, was that some of the manufacturers had run out of some product, right? Some of the manufacturers are still out of product. Mm-hmm. And the reason why was because they were single sourcing it. That's not very healthy. And obviously, if you're a manufacturer itself, you're not going out to a competitor to get your stuff produced for you. That was an even bigger problem, right? Because if you didn't have the raw material, you couldn't produce. So by utilizing domestic and offshore opportunities, we made sure that we could stay ahead of the curve and not run out of things. Now, there was a time or two where we ran out of like XR plus 70 for like 2 weeks. And I think we ran out of like maybe XR 20% for a couple of weeks. Flat glass films, now that Harry has come on board and merged Veloce with us, well, our demand for flat glass is skyrocketing, like, in a way that we didn't project. So there are times where we're projecting, hey, well, we're going to have a 50% increase in sales, and maybe we have a 200% increase in sales, and so that might actually create that situation where, like, oh man, like, we're going to run out of stuff before the new supply comes in, and we're getting a hold of those people and saying, hey, we need you to produce quicker and faster, and hey, by the way, let's bump it up. But like, what I can tell you is this is a very interesting thing. This was actually on our public trading call not that long ago. A year ago, in inventory on hand, we had around $35 million worth of film inventory on hand. At this moment, we have over $75 million worth of film inventory on hand. And the reason why we did that was because there is concern that there will be product shortages, and I think that concern is very real. And so because of that, we wanted to make sure that we were probably the only one that's going to be stocked up enough to be able to contend with that. What we won't allow happen is customers using us as a stopgap, right? We saw this already. We saw one of the major brands run out of very popular films in their 20% and 5% VLTs. And a lot of those shops were reaching out to us to say, hey, I want an XPEL account. We knew full well that they were just planning on using us short term, just until their current supplier could get that stuff back in stock. And we're like, yeah, That's not healthy for us. It's not healthy for our XPEL operations that we already have going. So no, if we can't see a real serious commitment from you in terms of conversion, which would probably require a very large purchase, a $10,000 order or more, then we're not going to go down this path, because we're not going to get used like that. We're not willing to be the bandage for you while you work with another brand. That's not smart business for us. But yeah, we continue to invest, again, a lot of time and money and effort and R&D in film development, and you're seeing that. The proof is in the pudding. I mean, if you go look at what I call Vision 2.0, right, the current flat glass lineup, man, it is really on fire.
It is.
And that's required an insane amount of financial resources that Harry asked for. And XPEL said, Harry, you want it, you got it. And, Harry is literally a freaking genius. And, but again, like maybe a little too good, in that we saw some, well, let's just say we saw some surprising accounts coming over to us from some other big brands that we never expected to hear from, saying, we want to carry your XPEL Vision instead. And so we were like, oh, well, thank you. But unfortunately, that did catch us with a little bit of a film shortage on some specific SKUs. For the most part, everything is done. Look, our newest film and our paint protection film, our XPEL Ultimate Plus Fusion, our coating infused film. Holy cow! They asked us for forecasting on that, and myself and Eric Cummins were involved in the forecasting for that for the United States. We gave them what we thought were really aggressive numbers. Man, we got it wrong. Straight up, we got it wrong. We are, I mean, the sell-through ratio of that film versus XPEL Ultimate Plus is shocking. And yeah, I will candidly say that we actually ran out of 60-inch for a very short period of time. I think it was for about 2 to 3 weeks. And, it's our fault. We didn't anticipate our clients wanting to migrate to that film at that price point. It's an expensive film. We didn't think that there was going to have that much popularity, and yet it did, and it continues to do so. And we're obviously happy, because now we've recognized, okay, well, that's a film that we need to stock up real heavy on. Our ceramic coating is another good example, right? We brought out a new glass version. That new glass version, man, it's smoking. The old glass version worked really well, but I would admit that the flash time was really long, and the not the flash time, sorry, the install time. You were doing your crosshatch patterning for like 3 minutes straight to get the coating to bond to the glass, and your arm was nearly dying on just a half window on a windshield, for instance. Brought out a new one, and there was, I guess, quite a few accounts that were not happy with the old one, and the proof was in the pudding, because the new one sold off the shelves in minutes. And we used our old glass coating sales as our forecasting for glass sales in general. So we got caught with our pants down, and then the worst case scenario of all was that in our last coating shipment of R1364, which is our PPF and paint coating, 2 pallets of that product somehow went disappearing from our shipping vendor. Like, dropped off the back of a truck. Nobody knows where it is. And it's gone. So, you can imagine when you've got that many boxes of this coating that you were anticipating being on your shelves, it's suddenly gone. It can create some serious heartache. And, think about that with our accounts that are 100% exclusive with us, right? What are they telling their customer? Like, it's not an easy conversation. Hey, I'm sorry, but right now XPEL's out of coating. Can you bring your car back in a few weeks when we got the coating back in? Yeah, unfortunately, that's what some of them had to do. So we're aware of it, and that's why we are spending more money than ever before in allocating more inventory on hand. As a matter of fact, this is why I'm in San Antonio. This is a big part of why I'm here right now. I flew in today to spend 2 days with Matt Moreau, the Senior Vice President, and multiple individuals from every department, including product planning, to say, hey guys, look at sales. The fact is it's going to grow by a much higher margin because of what's currently going on in the market. I'm looking at all the leads coming in. I'm looking at all these people that are asking to switch over. This is going to create more demand than ever before for XPEL. We need to be mindful of where we need to have our product mix and to have it on hand to be able to satisfy their needs. And so again, this is a big reason why I'm here for 2 days. I'm in meetings for two full days with this. Not just that, but this is one of the big topics.
Oof. So a couple questions we missed in the comments. We could probably touch on real quick. Do you know why the IR rejection specs changed on the XR and XR Plus? They went from 98% to 96 and 98 to 78. It's a different film or different measurements.
Yeah. So first of all, there's a standardized measurement platform that's supposed to be used in the industry, and it's not. And it doesn't have to be. It's recommended that it is. And so what you were seeing measurements at call it the easier spectrum, right? The easier part of the spectrum, right? Because the wavelengths run on a very large spectrum platform overall, right? I think it's like whatever it is, like 900 megahertz or to like 2400 or something like that. Or maybe it's 850. Whatever the number is, it doesn't matter. The point is that it was, you could measure it from 11 to 1300 and that's how you would get your best results.
Right.
So, again, XPEL being always trying to be very mindful of how they carry themselves in the marketplace and to be the consumer brand that it is, wanted to use more standardized practices.
Right.
And so we went ahead and remeasured everything with that in mind. Plus, we invested in a lot of this new equipment that I was talking about, right? So some of the equipment that we had maybe need to be recalibrated, and some of the equipment that we had maybe wasn't the best equipment that you could possibly get in the market. There's some of these pieces of equipment where you could get a $10,000 option and you can get literally a $200,000 option. When you're trying to build a company, do you want to always just spend 200 grand and hope that you get something out of it? No. You come and look at our unwinder, rewinders, and our Zuns and stuff like that, and you go, holy cow, like, I don't even want to guess what those machines cost, but all of our unwinder, rewinders, they're actually custom manufactured for us. They're not available to anybody else. And because of that, they're way more expensive than what you can buy off of a shelf. So again, like, you have to like pick your battles of where you're going to spend, your funding, right? And again, like, let's be clear with each other and upfront. We have shareholders, right? And we don't pay dividends. So keep that in mind, right? All of our shareholders are in with us for the long haul. They're not getting paid dividends the way that a lot of companies do. They're only looking for what does the share get to and then cash out. And so, you have to understand there's a board of directors and there's people like Ryan Pape at the head of this company who took it from a $10 million to $100 million to an over $1 billion company. That never happens with a single CEO. And I mean, never. Never. You'll have a CEO who can take it from a 10 million to 100 million, and then he's got to step aside because now it's outgrown him. And that $100 million guy can take it to a $500 million company, and that $500 million CEO is going to step out of the way and give it to the next guy who can take it to a $2 billion valuation. Well, Ryan Pape did all of that on his own. But a lot of that has been trying to at times make some hard decisions. And so what I can only surmise from all of that is that, number one, we went to go to more of the industry standard. Are our competitors doing that? No, not necessarily.
Right.
And I actually can tell you for a fact, most of them are not. Some of them definitely are. Let me be clear. Some of them definitely are, but most of them are not. And on top of that, we've spent crazy money in all this new lab equipment and retrofitting old lab equipment and recalibrating old lab equipment and stuff like that. And by old, maybe some of it was only 2 years old, but like a 2-year-old computer is almost obsolete unless you completely update it now, right? So,
I totally agree.
But that's the answer. So, But great, very, very legitimate question and a great question. At the end of the day, what I can tell you is the film hasn't changed. When you hold that film up to the sun and you hold up your CS, and then you take that film out of the way, and then you hold up your HP, and then you take that film out of the way, and you hold up the XR, and then you take the film, and you hold up the XR Plus. Man, that XR Plus is clearly the clear winner. I mean, it's insane how amazing that film is, especially for the fact that film is so easy to shrink, right? I mean, typically, the higher end the film you go, the more difficult it is to install.
Yep.
And it's just because of its construction manners and stuff like that. Nothing wrong with it. Again, I'm please, for sure, not trying to say there's something wrong with those other films. You know, I'm a massive fan of some of these other films. Like, let's just spell it out. 3M Crystalline is an incredible film, absolutely amazing film. But you do hear from a number of people that it's not as easy to shrink as, let's say, some of 3M's other film.
Sure.
And I'm certainly not trying to point 3M out, because again, I'm a massive fan of them, and especially my good friend Manny. I hope he doesn't get pissed off at me for saying this.
I don't think a single person would disagree with you, though, if they know.
I know, but again, I don't want to. It's not our intention to try and point that out as a negative. But what I'm trying to say is that film is incredible, absolutely amazing in its results, but it's harder to install than their other films. Where for us, our XR Plus is the easiest film to install of all the films that we have. So, kind of nice to have that situation going on.
And a real quick follow-up was, will the new marketing material reflect the measurements, or will they? I mean, it must, right? Obviously, you'll be updating.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like, you're already seeing it online, right? You can go into some of the measurements that are available online. Some of the marketing material that you guys are ordering might be actually the old SKU number. So please keep your eyes out for that fact that the SKUs will change. We don't use the same SKU number when we update something, because that's not healthy for inventory management properties, right? When we run out of a SKU, it's gone, thank God, and hopefully we delist it and take it away. But the fact is that quite often when you're online, you need to look out for the SKUs to be changing, right? And when that SKU changes for a similar description with a new SKU number, that's obviously the one you're going to want to pick. By the way, one of the things I'll point out that a lot of people don't know is that they think that we charge for those brochures and those warranty cards and stuff like that. That's actually not true, guys. I'll tell you a real cool trick. If you guys are doing online, right, here we are trying to get to that online thing. If you use the online portal, one of the ways we're trying to convince you to use the online portal is to go in and select 2 packages of, let's say, brochures or warranty cards, and it will not charge you when you update your cart. You'll see that it will go to $0. Now, if you choose 3 packages, then it will charge you. But if you select 2 packages, which is 50 in a pack, I mean, there's no reason why you need to order more than 2 packages at a time. But order 2 packages at a time, and it will not charge you online for those marketing materials automatically.
That is a beautiful thing, because the marketing materials are definitely essential, especially in flat glass. But I think across the board, you have to have that. You have to be able to have them. They have to be fresh. You have to be able to give them to your customers. You shouldn't be reusing one that you have forever, like none of that. So that's really cool. How is your live stream stamina? We have about 4 more things to go.
No, I'm good. I mean,
good?
look,
Okay.
I'm an hour early right now. My wife is, the kids are probably already asleep at this point. I'll FaceTime her when I'm done. And then I got to call my good buddy back, Rob from Never Ride Stock. But I told him that I suspected,
this was
knowing how contentious this podcast could be, that we might run long, and I'm fine with it. Keep going.
All right, so we're going to get into a really light question, and then we'll get back into the contention. I'm going to package 2 questions in one because they're kind of related. As a high-level jiu-jitsu specialist, what advice or technique do you have, or do you recommend for someone to maintain the discipline? And how has jiu-jitsu training affected your day-to-day and your work? Also packaged with, what do you think of business owners that are looking for PPF and tint talent, kind of focusing on people who may do jiu-jitsu because of the discipline and long-term commitment required, and humility and so on required to be able to be in that sort of practice?
So that's really, I mean, look, let's be clear about this. Less than 1% of people who start jiu-jitsu stay in jiu-jitsu, right? Less than 1% make it to a black belt. A black belt in jiu-jitsu will typically take a commitment of a minimum of 13 years. 12 to 13 years is the average. That's how long it took me, was just shy of 13 years to make it there. And that was with a lot of commitment, right? It was very rare that I wasn't practicing jiu-jitsu, and practicing it on average 5 to 6 days a week. It is my outlet, right? I mean, I spend a lot of mental energy all day, every day, from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, interacting with and or interacting on behalf of the XPEL clientele in this world, in terms of day-to-day operations, to the high-level management stuff that I'm doing tomorrow, to the, hey, you know, got this guy who's undercutting me down the street, what do I do about it, to the guy who's stealing my name in his Google SEO, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of drama, unfortunately. And you know, I need an outlet. So jiu-jitsu for me is that outlet. Jiu-jitsu I also love as a martial art, because it's not a quick road to a black belt, because it takes a long time, because it takes a lot of commitment. It does take a lot of humility. You know, I'm a competitor, and for the first 3 years or so of competing, I lost almost every single fight. It wasn't until the end of blue belt that I started winning fights and had made a mental change to really come into my own zone. And then from then I really took off, right? Last year, made it to #1 in the world as a brown belt master 4 in both gi and no gi, not only in my weight category, but in the open weight, which was a dream come true. Nobody can ever take that away from me. And that's something that almost nobody can ever say about themselves. There's probably less than, I don't know, 20 people that have ever accomplished that. So that's super cool. But, you know, but the fact is that most people who start jiu-jitsu start it with the obvious intention, like a gym, that they're going to stick with it, and they don't. Most people drop out of white. From then, the majority of them drop out of blue, and then it keeps going every belt, right? Then you know, the brown belt, you don't see a lot of brown belts drop out, but certainly it still happens because they're so close to that black. But you know, once you reach the black belt, you're a black belt forever. And what you do with it is another story. So do I think the idea of like looking for a PPF installer from a jiu-jitsu academy might be something worth considering? Yeah, well, because it's quite often an artist, right? We all know that the best installers for both tint, paint protection, film, I don't know about ceramic coating so much, but certainly paint correction, I think that's a genuine art. Is that just it, right? It's an artist, right? Dave Glendenning, right? Artist. That man is an artist. The way he used to tint, I don't know if he's still doing it that same way now. The way he lays paint protection film, you know, he really takes a serious amount of pride in the way that he does his work. And that's what I was exposed to. And that's what I got to see on a daily level. And there were many times where him and I couldn't communicate very well on a business level. It's because we didn't think the same way. I'm not an artist. He is. And, you know, it took us a bit to recognize that and to get through that. But maybe with that in mind, maybe that jiu-jitsu person is that perfect individual to bring on board for that possibility. Hard for me to know for sure, but I'd still recommend that, you know, you should always find an outlet outside of work, right? You don't want work and or home life to consume all of you. You know, I have an amazing home life. I have the most incredible wife who's unbelievably supportive of me working long hours and traveling a lot, and then still doing jiu-jitsu and competing a lot. This year, I agreed not to compete so much, but you know, I've done 2 competitions so far this year. I've got another one coming up in a few months, and next year I'm going to go hard again. I've told her already. My plan is to do 12 to 14 competitions again next year and go full bore in it, and that's going to be, you know, my goal is to now get well up in the ranks as a black belt. So.
Nice.
Hope that answered the question.
All right, back to stress. We have. All right, so I'm going to read this comment because this was just a comment left.
Sure.
It's not really a question; it's more of a comment with a question. All right, we have been having other local XPEL shops offering cut rate pricing. When I signed on with XPEL, we were told they want pricing to be similar, to remain on a higher side, to keep their status as a premium brand. This is what obviously we've talked about it now on this episode, which fits into how they price. I know they can't tell us all what to charge, but what can be done about these about shops pricing literally 50 to 60% off of what they're charging? Reach out to your rep, right? Let them know what's going on.
Yes, but you hold on a second. So you have to have real solid proof of this, and this is the problem. Look, even as a previous shop owner myself, right? When Dave and I would get an inquiry where Platinum Autosports, which was this really good shop that was also an XPEL shop in Kamloops, was literally a mile down the road from us. JT was the manager of the operation. We'd have customers come in and tell us, man, why are you guys so expensive? Man, JT's charging me $700 cheaper for a full front end than you are. we'd want to believe it. Like you would really want to believe that customer. We have this natural instinct to believe that people are telling us the truth, right? We don't want to be lied to. And so you would like get pissed off. I mean, Dave and I, especially Dave for sure, maybe me too, I don't know, but I feel like Dave more so than me would get all pissed off about this price point. And I'd be like, man, like maybe we need to gut check this though, because what if JT didn't say that? So I called JT up and I said, hey brother, like, is there any possibility you're charging this kind of price? He goes, Chris, from now on, when that happens, do me a favor, call me on speakerphone with the customer. Put them in their place, because they're totally not telling the truth. Yeah, he was like $150 cheaper in a full front end than us, but we did like things like loaner cars and stuff like that. So we had justifications behind why we were more expensive. And we were aware of his price point compared to ours, but the price that customers were telling us was just astronomically lower. And so we started doing that. So then here I became a rep, and like, man, like I remember especially in Washington, D.C. area and the New York City area, I would get this all the time. I mean, all the time. Every dealer was telling me how every other dealer was undercutting the market. And so what I did was I showed up in those markets and I got all of them in the same room. And we went to dinner together, and it was funny because I actually had accounts warning me, I don't think you should put those two accounts in the same room. One of them's going to bring a gun to the table. Hold on, let me switch the AirPod just in case that one dies. And so, you know, I was a little nervous, but meanwhile, dinner went amazing, and we would break bread together and have a drink or two together. Not me, of course, because you know I don't drink alcohol. But the point is that they were now communicating with each other, right? And so what we agreed to was like, look, if you want me to respond to somebody who's undercutting the marketplace, I need it in writing. I'm not permitted to discuss where a customer has told you. I don't care if 10 customers have told you this. It's not viable. Let me tell you something right now. Every single one of us on this call has lied. 100% has lied about a price that we got from somebody else when we go shopping for something. It has absolutely happened where we show up with something, and whether it's a big purchase like a car or a TV or a mortgage rate or an insurance quote or whatever, we've sat there and said the competitor is cheaper in order to believe that these guys have margin and that they're going to offer a lower price that's going to win our business over, and that's how we're going to negotiate. Rather than saying to them, hey, well, why don't you tell me your best price, because they're not going to give it to us, we're going to put out a number that's actually, you know, fictional, and then wait for the response. So, you know, in the New York City area, man, like you're talking about very savvy buyers, very savvy. It's like these guys have been groomed on how to negotiate from the time they came out of the womb. And using this tactic is one of them. What's amazing is that when I told those accounts, I'm never permitted to discuss pricing ever again without written proof, not from a customer. You send me a customer saying, hey, this shop quoted me, that's still not proof.
Right.
You get me a written quote from that shop in an email where I can see the email address. I don't even care if the signature's there. If I can see the email address, it's proof because I know what email it is, right? Yeah. So like, and then I would be able to go back to them and say it. But like even just the other day, Dean Mitchell dealt with one of these with a shop in New York City area, had a written quote, and it was quite a bit lower than that general market was. And he called the account up and he said, hey, man, I'm looking at a number that's really uncomfortable for me. What are you doing? He said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, I've got it in front of me. So he went and pulled it up himself. He had it still on his system. And he goes, yeah, but read it. It's not for a full front end. It was for a front end, but it's a partial. And it was like, oh, shoot. Like, it was hard to decipher that in the quote. It really wasn't well enough spelled out.
It wasn't a Tint quote. I can be sure of that if it was so confusing. Go ahead.
It was. And so, look, we just said, hey, well, here's how we want you to word it from now on. So it's very clear. But you could tell that at the end of the day, he was telling the truth. Yeah, it was regarding a partial installation. Right. So, I mean, again, all I can say is that, look, we're comfortable in having these conversations. You have markets that do not have high price points. That's a reality. You would like the market to have a high price point, but because we started these conversations about price points much later in our in our history, if you will, right? Then you've got to recognize that unfortunately some markets they don't have the pricing model that you would like to have in that market. Maybe over time, actually no, not maybe, 100% over time that is changing. It has changed a lot. Look, we saw this happen in Charlotte. Charlotte was a very, very low priced market. Mike Burke would be the first to tell you that. You know, Brian Brown would be the second to tell you that. And we worked with everybody to bring that market up. And is it as high as some other markets? No, but it's a lot higher than it used to be. I mean, the average tint on a 4-door car there was 175. The average tint now in that market is for sure over 250. That's a
Really
big
good.
adjustment.
That's really good. If average, you know.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's see. Back in 2002, this is actually the last question I have on here. So back in 2002, Lumar was a premium brand for tint and had their name on race cars and tried to aggressively corner the market and made a lot of rules as they went along a similar path to what XPEL is doing. A lot of dealers got sick of too many rules and cronyism. A company surfaced called Suntech, which we all know, and everybody basically switched over from Lumar to Suntech. Let's see how this plays out. The question that he kind of touched on there, which I actually had for you, was I was just more curious about like the race support that XPEL's involved in with like, you know, Indy or F1 and so on. I was just curious overall, like what the, you know, what the concept is, if it's more like consumer awareness or whatnot. But I guess that was a small part of his question. It was more along the lines of
Yeah, it's more. I think it's
rules,
not really a question. I think it's more an
huh,
aggressive sort of like take
criticism.
on the idea that hey, like you know, as XPEL is putting more rules in place, you know, their anticipation is it's going to fail, and I can appreciate the belief behind that. I mean, number one is no matter what back then, Lumar did not have the market the way that XPEL does, and if you think otherwise, you're just sorry, but you're wrong. And what I mean by that is that it didn't have the pattern database. It didn't have the marketing. It had some marketing, right? But it had minimal. It had more of a branding approach versus a targeted product marketing strategy, which is what we do. Don't get me wrong, we do branding as well. But our main strategy is product specific targeted marketing, right? That's why we do all these events, right? We do hundreds of events and we do them all the time, all the time. And you know, we do magazines like DuPont, and yes, we do influencers, and most of the influencers that we deal with are not paid influencers. You know, some of the other brands have started getting into the influencers. They're paying those influencers. That to me does not seem like the how should I put this? If your only way of attracting an influencer is by paying them, then maybe the brand isn't as strong as you think it is, right? I'm not saying that doesn't have a benefit. It for sure has a benefit, but like the majority of our influencers, the vast majority, over 90% or more of the influencers we deal with, get paid nothing from us. Nothing.
Wow.
Now we might supply free product,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but that's not paid. And they are paying for their installation. We're not paying the labor for their installation. You know, even the Tuner Theory group, which is for sure, you know, arguably the best influencers on the planet. We don't pay a single one of them. Not one of them has gotten one single penny from
Crazy.
us as an actual payment.
That's
And
very
yet,
impressive, frankly. I mean,
yeah,
that's
and they would all
super
tell you
impressive.
that right now. I mean, right now, if I got any of them on the phone, now we have given them product, yes, but they have to reach out to their XPEL only operation. They have to negotiate the labor price. Now, sometimes the local operator will say, "Hey, this is a really good influencer, and it's good for me to maybe pony up the labor portion or a vast
Right.
majority of it." That's on them. But what I'm telling you is XPEL is not covering the cost of the install. Now, then we have other influencers like Ryan Martin from Street Outlaw. Yeah, okay. I'm going to be clear about this. There is a payment involved, and that makes sense, right? That's on Discovery Channel. That's the number one driver on the planet right now for drag racing in the spectrum, right? You know, and there's others too, you know, that we talk to and we're talking to, You know, we've worked with Goldberg, right? I'm sure that that's somewhat of a paid influencer. And again, so I'm not trying to say that we've never worked with a paid influencer and never will. That's definitely not true. But you know, we know that one of our competitors in particular, the only influencers that we can see that they're really having any effect with are literally paid influencers only, and that's not a secret, you know. So the question is, how much influence are they having? So going back to, and I'm sorry, I guess I got sort of sidetracked. I apologize. Yeah, I mean, you know, I've had some of this contentious conversations with some individuals who are like, you know, this is going to be your downfall. Well, I heard that when I cut off Cutbank, and look at how beneficial that was. I heard that when I heard all about the marriage proposal, and look at how beneficial that was. I heard that when, I mean, it's just the story goes endless, where all these people told us it was going to be the end of XPEL, and yet XPEL is the fastest growing company by a long shot. I mean, nobody's even remotely close in growth percentages to what XPEL is doing in the film world. And I'm talking big companies. I mean, you could take a company that was only selling 100 grand last year, and now they're selling 300 grand this year. Okay, it has a 300% increase. Yeah, but that's not, we're not comparing apples and apples, right?
Right.
So, you know, and the other big difference I think to contend with there is that you're talking about a company that didn't have shop owners as the majority of their management. You're talking about a company that had, you know, university degree hirees that were working within them. A lot of them came from other divisions. I mean, the way that Eastman works is they rotate people through divisions. Today you're in the you know, you're in the Kodak side of film industry, and tomorrow you're in the medical device industry, and the day after you're in the film industry. I mean, that's the way they rotate their management. And I actually think it's a phenomenal thing that they're doing, because it gives their management a lot of different expertise. I think it's very cool. But at the end of the day, it's not specialized, right? And the difference with us is that Matt Moreau, Senior Vice President, Mike Mail, myself, uh, David, Vic. I mean, wow, like I don't even know if I could come up with all the names of all the individuals that we have within either sales or management that are actually previous shop owners that are now involved heavily in the decision making of the company. So the fact is that we see things from a very different perspective than somebody who only came out of a book style education, right?
Oh, yeah.
And if you think otherwise, then great. I will be glad to continue this argument another 5 years from now. Are we continuing to put more rules in place? I don't think we're putting that many more rules in place. I think what we're doing is we're upholding what I started, and that clearly has had the biggest impact. And there's nobody, and I mean, there's nobody in this business. My competitors, my number one competitors, tell me to my face, you made the biggest difference in the industry for XPEL, period. Bar none. Nobody has had the effect that you had. And it's because of the stuff that I put in place. So, you know, you can love it or hate it. I'm fine with it either way. At the end of the day, it might be because we won't let you in, and maybe that's the reason why you're saying it. Or maybe it's because you don't want to be exclusive, and that's why you're saying it. Because 99% of the people that are naysayers on those forums, again, if I was permitted to, from legal perspective, to open up NetSuite and post the recorded conversations where they're telling the rep how desperately they want XPEL and to switch from their current brand, and how can we let them in? There's got to be a way to let them in, man. There'd be a lot of silent people in those trap forums, man. There'd be a lot of people in those forums that would shut their mouth. I wish we could do that, but we can, and we're not going to.
Well, I think it's crystal clear that, you know, if you, whatever the questions is, or whatever the questions are, whatever the criticism is, there's an answer to it. It's just a matter of reaching out, asking, going down the right route or whatnot. And I would just say, like, you know, for anybody who's angry or has like issues or whatever, you know, it's always more important, like, reach out, try to learn, ask the question. Like, even like what I just read, like I hadn't read them before, frankly. Like, I mean, I glanced them, but then I printed them all, and I was like, I'm just going to read whatever they ask, because that's how transparent you wanted to be. So I wanted to be equally as transparent. And what I'm putting my own opinion on that is, once I read it, I'm like, you can't take that angle when you have a problem. You got to take more of like a, I'm interested, or I want to know, or here's what happened to me, but I don't know. Not like a, I'm not on that team, so I just want to project hoping that they want to fail. Like that's just not a way to live your life. We're not a way to be in an industry, and not a way to grow.
Yeah, and like, look, at the end of the day, you can talk to a lot of people who were really upset about these conversations and quote unquote rules that were put in place, and you can ask them their perspective now and to see if and why it changed. And I'll give you the person I always allude to the most is Josh Popenick. Love the kid.
Mm-hmm.
The kid was 27 years old when I met him and was already like the outright owner of his second operation, which was $1 million building, and his home and his Lambo and all these things. And I'm like, damn, like I didn't have it going on like him at his age. And like he was a fiery individual, and he still is a fiery individual. He is very opinionated, as am I. And we did not see eye to eye, and I didn't realize that we didn't see eye to eye. I actually was blind to it until he called my boss, and my boss called me and said, "What the hell did you do to piss off Josh Popenick like that?" And I'm like, "Oh my God. Oh wow, I didn't think I did. Holy shit." Sorry for language, but holy shit, let me call Josh and try and set the record straight. And I did call Josh back and set the record straight. And 2 months later, he called me and said, "Hey, you know what? I can't get that conversation out of our head. I really do think that maybe it would be best for my business to be exclusive with you guys. And what does that look like?" And we made the transition. Now that was before we brought out coding. And then, then we brought out coding, and in all his new operations, he's 100% XPEL. In his original operation, he was still utilizing a little bit of Ceramic Pro, but at this point, I mean, I don't think that he offers Ceramic Pro at all, other than through his care and maintenance program that he's got to maintain his existing warranties, right? And again, great brand, right? Like again, no shame in obviously talking about how awesome Ceramic Pro is. But you guys want to talk to somebody who freaking hated my guts and hated that conversation and would tell you that his business is, well, I don't know if he can tell the numbers for sure because he might get pissed off at me for that, but I can tell you that he is 5 times larger as a wholesale account, all included, right? No matter who he was buying for. So back then he was buying from XPEL, Ceramic Pro, and 3M. Take those numbers combined together and then when exclusive, he is a minimum of 5 times larger at this moment than he was then.
Wow.
And he is going to tell you that the biggest reason for that, besides himself and his success and his drive, is because he got married to XPEL. That's a fact. Ray Van Dexter, which is our window film dealer of the year out of Jersey, who was the 3M dealer of the year for Jersey or South Jersey or something like that for a lot of years, who was also Ceramic Pro. Same thing. Like Ray Van Dexter has called me many times over, thanking me repetitively about the success of his business. That guy went from a $100,000 account to well over a $500,000 account in 3 years, and is obviously much higher than that now. And he attributes it to XPEL. I'm like, no, it's not just for this brand. There's no chance that it's just this brand that did that for you. But the fact is that you got married. We formed a partnership. You utilized us to help drive your business, understand your business, help figure things out, and work together as partners. And because of that, that is a part of the success, and the rest of it is yours. So you want to talk to people who were not fans? I can give you a laundry list of names of individuals you talk to who would tell you otherwise. Rick Jeffries, right? Automotive Elegance, our dealer of the year since we've offered that award, was not XPEL only. They were 50-50, Eastman and XPEL. Went in and said, "Hey, we need a marriage." That man, being as big a buyer as he was very unhappy with me and was demanding a different rep. And right now would get on the phone and tell you I'm one of his best friends on the planet, that he would do anything for me, literally. He'd get on a plane right now if I told him I needed him. He'd be here in as fast as a plane could get him here. And he is 100% XPEL. And as big as his operation was, it's a drop in the bucket compared to what it is today. And he'd tell you as well that, yeah, of course they play a major part of it, but this brand played the other most serious part of it. He would never have gotten to where he is now without being exclusive. So call it what you want, but the proof's in the pudding.
Fair enough. Last question for you. Is there anything about XDC 23 you can tell us?
I can tell you that 2022 was epic. I can tell you this is important to note. We hosted in San Antonio because we need to bring in all those employees and all that equipment and everything like that. And there's been a number of times where people said, hey, can you please host it somewhere else? We've looked into it. But as you know already, because I've disclosed this before, we lose over lose over $500,000 to put on dealer conference. Over $500,000 lost to put on dealer conference.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning after we collect money from people.
I totally hear you. Like anybody who's ever put anything close to an event together knows how expensive an event is. And if you've been to XCC, you know what a big event that is. So
So with all that said, we realized that the cost would be prohibitively more expensive to pick somewhere else. So we haven't. So the negative is that San Antonio has become a hotspot for conventions.
Okay.
And so we weren't able to lock down as early as a date as we would have liked to have. We like to have it in the beginning of February, typically, before or after the Super Bowl weekend.
Mm-hmm.
This year, it's going to be in April. I don't remember the exact dates. I know I was given them, but that's the only part I can tell you for sure. And what I can also tell you is that the prize money, which was pretty outrageous last year, right? We gave away $30,000 in cash for first place prizes alone.
Total.
Like, right? We gave away like over $40,000 or something like that in cash last year. I know the prize money is staying. We're not going backwards on that. I know that the breakout sessions are going to be, of course, incredible as they always are. As always, we don't stand on a stage and talk about ourselves, as you know now for yourself since you attended for a couple of days straight, right? We get up, we talk a very little bit, like you saw it. Like Ryan Pape was up for maybe half an hour. Maybe we had a couple of videos from Carlos Alvarez, Mike Mayall, some people like that. But maybe total talk time about ourselves, I don't even think was 2 hours. And the rest of the 2 days was stuff that we could bring to them, right? So whether we're bringing in a guest speaker that's going to help them focus on their operation, the breakout sessions, right? We had Jared Gines, the gentleman that we utilize, that we recommend a lot for people with regards to their building their social media accounts and websites and stuff. Mike Mail did an incredible job with talking about switching over your program from 8 mil to 10 mil, and then of course from XUP to XUFN and what that could look like.
Sold out. I'm telling you, that's why you sold out your predictions, was because of his breakout session, because he really outlined why you want to use the new film.
Yeah, his breakout session. Yeah. I had quite a few people who came to me and told me that his breakout session was actually the best of all of them, and that's saying a lot. Like that's really giving a lot. We have a lot of advanced training that goes on in our breakout sessions that are available. So again, I mean, it's going to be insane. But what I haven't seen as of yet is like who the guest speaker options are yet. Any of that stuff. Again, right now we're focused on this season with our IndyCar, our NASCAR, and our Street Outlaws, and our Barrett Jacksons and Monterey Weeks. We just did the Porsche Car Club event. We're going to be obviously doing all the Corvette events like we always do. I mean, it's we picked up the British Grand Prix series. We'll be at Goodwood Spew Festival. I mean, again, like event after event after event after event. So as funny as this sounds, we don't pour a lot of effort and energy into XDC until it gets obviously closer.
Okay. And then final last question. Will I be able to see Chris Hardy in person in San Antonio for the WFCT in September?
What is the dates of WFC? What is that? Let's answer that.
All right. 14th through the 16th. It's a Wednesday through a Friday.
Done. I will commit to being there.
Nice. All right.
I will say that 100% I will be there because you or whoever is asking. I will put that in my calendar right now, and I'll make sure that I'm there for it.
Beautiful.
So I'm going to be fighting at the Worlds just before that, so I wasn't planning on but I'll make it happen.
Awesome. Done. I can't wait to see you then. It's less than 90 days away.
Done. I'm in.
Cool.
Well, thank you so very much for hosting me, and
thank you.
Hey, thank you to the entire audience. Look, regardless of whether or not you're a fan of mine or a fan of XPEL's, I'm more than comfortable in not everybody, believing in what we're currently up to and doing. We're obviously converting more people than ever before to it. And, the result is obviously there with our growth. That's publicly traded, public information. You can compare that to anybody else. The numbers speak for themselves. And the fact that we have more accounts than ever before reaching out to us to try and garner one of these opportunities from us is there. But at the end of the day, again, not everybody has to agree, but what we do need to do is respect each other. I'm a big fan of Eastman. I've said that repetitively on this podcast. I'm a huge fan of 3M. I have been for both those companies for a very long time. I think that the Premium Shield acquisition from Eastman was brilliant. So if I can respect my competition and speak highly of them, then I think that we should all be able to do so.
Man, no, you said it absolutely perfectly. And I just want to say that when I've seen you at these events, you see that same camaraderie amongst you and other brands. So you're not just saying it, you're living it. And thank you for coming on and being so transparent. I think there's nothing better than communication and transparency. Really, communication solves everything, right? So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you again.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And we may or may not be back next week. Have a great night. Bye.